Order. Good evening. I'm Eric Greenberg, Chair of the FY23 City Board of Directors. Following past practices, I will chair this annual meeting of the members of the Columbia Association. Please remember that this meeting, as well as the following organizational meeting of the FY24 City Board of Directors and organizational meeting of the Columbia Council, are being live streamed. You can find the agendas and background materials for all this evening's meetings on the City Board of Directors webpage. Links to these documents can also be found in the description section of our YouTube live stream for those that are watching this meeting there. If you're virtual, please mute your microphones unless speaking. If you're in the room, please ensure that all cell phones are silenced. Raise your hand to speak and I will record the names in the order which I see them. If you are virtual, please use the chat feature. As we move through the meeting, I will introduce each item on the agenda. Before a vote is taken, I will restate a motion as well as who motioned it and seconded. If at any point you have trouble hearing me or any member present, please say so. Tonight's timekeeper is Andy Stack. I will now call the roll. Sky.
Here.
Reg.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Karen.
Here.
Chris.
Here.
Alan. Alan, are you out there? Keith.
Here.
Bill.
Here.
Andy.
Here.
And I am here. Also present is Dennis Matty, who's the president and CEO of the Columbia Association.
And Alan is here.
Oh, Alan is here. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda? I have a motion by Lynn, seconded by Keith. Is there any objections to the agenda? Seeing no
I have a question. I would like to hear I would like to understand the reasoning around the order of events, which, because we were elected as Columbia Council members.
So the first meeting is actually the meeting of the members. So the meeting of the members elect the board.
Right, but do we become members automatically, or does the council choose the members?
We are members by virtue of our elections.
So that's okay. That's automatic.
So
Thank you.
I believe we start off as members.
Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong. We are members. So I called the list of all the members. At the end of this meeting, we'll vote to make ourselves directors of the organization.
Right.
Understood.
Understood.
You have to,
Thank you.
it's in the wrong order. You have to make yourself directors before you can do any business.
Oh yeah, well, that's what happens now.
So you have to have the council, Columbia Council meet first.
Are we order for the meeting?
The order of the meeting is
I know, I'm not asking for the order of meeting, but we're supposed to just be board members.
right now we're members of the organization.
Right.
Not board members.
Right now,
Can
members
you're
of the
not,
Columbia Council.
you've got to keep control of this.
Could you, people in the audience, please? I'll continue. So, again, the order of the meeting is meeting of the members, followed by the board meeting, followed by the meeting of the Columbia Council. So we have a motion by Lynn, a second by Keith to approve the agenda. Is there any objections to the agenda? Seeing no objections, the agenda is so moved. We'll now move on to resident speak out. I'll call on you one by one in the order which you signed up. Individuals have 3 minutes for comment. Anyone representing an organization has 5 minutes. Following remarks, the board will have a chance to ask questions. Please mute your microphones when you are not speaking. Our first one is Alan Flugard, who is an individual and virtual. Alan?
Good evening. My name is Alan Flugrad, and I have lived in Columbia for over 50 years, mostly in King's Contrivance. I'm active in many volunteer programs related with our natural environment. I am a Howard County Master Watershed Steward. The purpose of my speak out is to communicate the quality of our streams in Columbia and to request that Columbia implement more watershed improvement best management practices. For over 10 years, in coordination with the Columbia Association, Maryland DNR, and Howard County Watershed Stewards Academy, I have participated actively in monitoring 10 to 20 local streams each year. We monitor the stream's biological, chemical, and habitat health using rigorous state protocols and professional lab taxonomy. We also educate our communities to reduce the corrosive excess nutrient and sediment stormwater runoff. We applaud and support our Howard County and CA stormwater and watershed managers for implementing many best management improvement practices as required by EPA and Maryland law. Thus, we have the data, and it's not good as most streams' biological scores are poor or very poor. And our streams feed the Patuxent River, which remains one of the worst rivers entering the Chesapeake Bay, and the Chesapeake Bay remains impaired. Last year, 2 of our lakes tested positive for harmful blue-green algae. 3 recent episodes of negative offsets to gains in our watershed prompted my speak out. The first is that Trout Unlimited and Maryland DNR recently determined that after years of stocking trout in the middle of Patuxent and Kings Contrivance, they would stop because too much sediment had negatively altered the viable trout habitat. The second was the action of the Kings Contrivance Village Architectural Committee, who recently updated their guidelines and requested comment. I and many others recommended changes consistent with the new Maryland HB 322 law, which supports homeowners' ability to implement low-impact landscaping. They did not implement those recommendations. In my opinion, they are in violation of the law, but more importantly, they violate the spirit as to who we want to be. The third occurred when our stream survey team was routinely collecting our data at a Wild Lake source stream that was recently renovated. We were not only collecting our data, but also sharing our methods with some young Boy and Girl Scouts when a lady joined us unexpectedly and began to discuss something about unnecessary stream habitat improvements. I was taken back, even startled, and could only attempt to point out that these stream banks were now not eroded, indeed very stabilized, and that the flow was slowed with nice step-down pools. So, Columbia should be the leader in all things that improve.
Thank you. We're time. Can you make a closing statement?
Environment, stronger countermeasures are needed.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
just curious, Al, pleasure to meet you. I wonder if you have looked at the Lake Elkhorn stream improvement proposals. There's no actual proposal yet, but process is going on. I wonder if you have any comments related to that. If you don't, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that we need to be aggressive in our approaches. We need to take some risks. The Chesapeake Bay has been under siege with all types of improvements that are never implemented. So it's time to do bold things. And I haven't reviewed that program in detail, but I've followed it at a high level. I think improvements are needed.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Thank you. Next, we have Sharon Boyes representing Protect Our Streams. Sharon?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening.
Oh, good evening and congratulations. I want to thank every one of you for your time and commitment to our community. My name is Sharon Boyce. My family moved to Columbia in 1969. I met Jim Rouse several times as a child, and I always felt like I was a part of something special. When people buy into Columbia, they buy into a concept, one that includes a connection to nature, because Jim Rouse recognized the importance and the benefits of that connection all those decades ago. Your home may look into a wooded stream and wildlife corridor, or at a pond or a lake, or maybe you enjoy walking or biking along the shady tree-lined paths. Even the tot lots were built in places that encourage kids and parents to enjoy and appreciate their natural surroundings and to develop these healthy connections. Unfortunately, 60 years ago, folks weren't really paying any attention to the negative impacts and side effects of upland stormwater runoff that was exacerbated by all the development. Although erosion and sediment are a part of any natural stream, decades of rainstorms have allowed polluted, gritty stormwater runoff to blast into our streams, fire hosing the banks, adding more sediment into the streams, and in Columbia, these streams will eventually carry this sediment to a pond or lake downstream, which were designed to collect this silt and sediment. And unfortunately, when the sediment flow has reached a certain point, it will need to be dredged. Dams equal dredging, and there's no way around it. I first learned of the proposed Lake Elkhorn Stream project in the spring of 2021 while I was working with the regulatory agencies regarding the devastating results of the Longfellow and Town Center stream restoration. Elkhorn's mature, shady, biodiverse forest is habitat for 215 species of birds that includes breeding pairs of forest interior dwelling species, which are on the decline in Maryland. It's also habitat for an endangered species of bat. The proposed project, which the CA-WAC has stubbornly stood behind, calls for the removal of 65 acres of mature trees and vegetation to be removed from the 133 acres of our open space along 6 miles of streams. The project will leave the now shady stream out in the baking sun. Some sections of stream banks will be scraped away, while other sections of the stream will actually be filled in with quarried, imported substrate, causing the stream to flood into a newly created floodplain. This technique is from the last century. We know better now, but I have serious concerns that the WAC doesn't. Has the board ensured the WAC is using only the best and current science and reference materials? The company who stands to make untold millions from the easement granted by the board, who only had an 11-minute discussion and without having seen the results of Longfellow yet, is a tree removal company based out of Ohio. The list of concerns is nearly endless and requires hours to fully discuss. You are now the third board of directors we'll be sharing some of those concerns with in hopes of stopping this project as last proposed. We need a new plan that involves the community, CA, the county, and maybe even the state to address the rainfall in the Elkhorn watershed once and for all, and one that actually reduces the need for dredging by reducing the sediment carrying rainwater before it reaches the stream. This project has been opposed by residents, elected officials, and environmental organizations. If you haven't been on a stream walk with me, or even if you have, let's schedule one so we can talk about all of this. One of the most crucial duties this board has is to protect our wooded open space, ponds, lakes, and stream corridors. It's what makes Columbia so special. It's why we stand apart. I'm asking you tonight to please fulfill your obligation. Please protect it. We are waiting for the revised plan, and it's been confirmed. You will have 10 days from the time the plan is submitted to CA to withdraw from the agreement. I beg you to come up with a process for when the plan is submitted. WSSI sent a letter to John McCoy on April 12th explaining they will be pulling Reach 1 from the mitigation bank. After stating Reach 1 is deeply incised in a narrow riparian area and in close proximity to backyards and infrastructure and separated from the lower reaches, they do not feel the restoration of this reach would result in sufficient functional uplift that would justify the construction impact. Also, this would likely result in more construction work than is palatable for the residents in this location. We are thrilled this reach will be safe for future generations, but what does this say about the residents in the other reaches with the very same concerns? Because their yard is 10 feet further from the project, that it makes it all okay, where their property values or kids or connections to nature don't count as much? This project has no business in Columbia. Please tell MDE and ACE to stop this project. Thank you for your immediate consideration, and congratulations again to all of you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Sharon? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Barbara Lawson.
Hey, I'm Barbara Lawson, and I live in Wild Lake, and Bill Santos is my representative. You've seen me here before. I'd like to congratulate the new people on your election. I am happy and encouraged to see new faces on the Columbia Council Board of Directors. This bodes well for new beginnings and opportunities to restore the respect and confidence of the community in your decision-making, which has been badly tattered. Tonight, you will be electing new leadership. I believe it is imperative you elect leadership who will assure the community that your decisions, processes, and organizational oversight going forward are based on the highest organizational and ethical standards. This means listening and responding to the community you represent, not your personal interests and bias. This means openness and candor, no more closed meetings. This means understanding the ethics policy and living by it, especially conflict of interest. This means understanding your fiduciary responsibilities, and especially this means understanding the role of a board and the role of a CEO. It is my hope you will vote a new president and vice president tonight. council members who will demonstrate an understanding of their role and can bring the community steady and consistent leadership. The community wants to be assured the Columbia Association's elected leadership is competent and knows the rules of the road. I am hopeful with the new leadership we can begin to repair relationships and restore the respect this body so sorely deserves. Thank you for your time and all that you contribute to this community, but really, we do need to have a level of professionalism going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Actually, not a question, but a comment. As we were walking in together, you told me that there was a group that was doing something for us. What was that group?
I'm sorry?
When you and I were walking in together?
Oh, when the debate over Lakey's tenure here.
No, you were telling me there was a group that was doing something for this body right now. What was that?
I think that must be a misunderstanding. I don't know of
Okay.
any group.
Okay, all right.
That there was a group of us, especially through my church back
Yes,
at the.
that's what I'm talking about.
Right, yes.
Yeah, you said that they were praying for all
Right,
of us. For
right, exactly.
We would
Hoping that
do.
we could have a little more peaceful debate and
Yes.
try to resolve things through mediation and not spending thousands of dollars on legal fees.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Robert Dover.
Hi, I'm Bob Dover. I live at 6354 Tamar Drive. My property borders CA property along Elkhorn Branch. I'm a registered professional geologist with more than 35 years of experience as a surface water hydrologist. I oppose the Elkhorn project because it isn't based on the current science, and it will increase the potential for flood damage to homes, including mine. The advocates of this natural channel design method are able to convince bodies like CA by stressing that they have decades of experience doing these types of projects. That is true, and it's also a big part of the problem. The method is based on science from the early 1990s, and 30 years later, the science has moved on. Academic researchers had followed behind and studied the results, and the results aren't good. It's now well documented that the method fails to accomplish objectives and actually makes stream conditions worse. In the past few weeks, I've reviewed the prospectus just as I would any hydrology report at work. I began by looking to see if it cites any scientific basis for its claims. What I found shocked me. The prospectus only cites 3 old articles, and when I looked them up, I found that none of them said what the prospectus claimed that they said. I then researched the literature to see if there was any recent scientific support for this methodology, and there isn't. There is a large body of literature beginning in about 2007 that not only concludes the method doesn't work, but criticizes it and its supporters in scathing terms. Simon and others in 2007 referred to it as based on 50-year-old technology never intended for engineering design, and said that it allowed individuals and groups that have limited backgrounds in stream and watershed sciences to modify streams. In 2014, Dr. Margaret Palmer referred to NCD as the product of a very lucrative training business based on a profit motive and a charismatic personality. If you want to see these articles for yourself, and I think you should, I've attached them to my written comments, which as soon as I get everybody's email, I will be sending. I've got hard copies here if people want them. It appears that it's extremely convenient that the prospectus fails to mention these articles that criticize their method or any other recent articles that criticize their method. I'm not sure who the CA board has gotten advice from, but any amount of cursory review of the prospectus by a qualified hydrologist would have identified these glaring problems. So I urge that CA reject the prospectus and start over using the scientific literature from the past 10 years, not from 30 years ago. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I do.
Alan?
I appreciate that you're going to be sending links to articles. I hope you will include at least one that's written in layperson's language for those of us who only know water as something to drink.
Hopefully my comments will be written that way. I can't pretend that the articles will, although I will be marking in the articles exactly where I'm making these points, so you don't have to pour through 40 pages of gobbledygook.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Judge, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just a quick one. Bob, You represent a organization, don't you?
I have worked with Sarah back here with Protect Our Ponds on the Sulis Orchard Pond project.
Right.
I'm here as an individual.
Okay.
I
didn't know if
don't
you-
represent the Protect Our Streams people. I've met with them.
Right.
I've talked to them. I don't disagree with them, but I'm not a member, so I didn't ask for the additional 2 minutes.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if you were representing, if you were, just didn't know that you could represent.
I did know
Okay.
I could. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you. Next we have Richard Bannister. Richard?
Hello?
Hello, I can hear you.
Hello. I'm just getting my camera working. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for this time. I'm Richard Bannister. I live on High Tor Hill. And at the CA Board of Directors work session on April 23rd of this year, a representative from the Watershed Advisory Committee made several statements showing their lack of understanding of the issues around the Lake Alcorn project. At the last board meeting, I explained in detail, contrary to the WAC testimony, how the methods involved in the project will only extend the length of time any toxic algae blooms that are a threat to the public and animals will affect Lake Alcorn and will also negatively affect oxygen levels, leading to more fish kills. Now to another part of the WAC testimony. Quote, the CA, this is from their WAC, the CA WAC reminds the board that despite the claims of some residents, there is not a design for the project accomplished. This is not a claim I have heard any residents make. A citation would have been helpful here. What I and others have claimed is that there is a plan, contrary to the public testimony of employees of CA. For instance, Dennis Maddy said at a board meeting on February 4th of this year, quote, what they are going to approve is only the funding mechanism that's going to address the questions that the joint agencies have. It's not a plan. Wrong on both points. It is a plan. It's called the prospectus, has concept plans within it, and has to be considered in order for the funding mechanism to go ahead. Also, on February 8th, 2022, Jeremy Scharfenberg, Director of Sustainability, and John McCoy, Watershed Manager, published this statement, quote, in fact, there is currently no conceptual design for the project, close quote. They say that in a memo to the CA board that apparently is a response to comments on the Lake Alcorn prospectus, which itself is a plan that contains concept plans and a concept narrative. That is, in that statement, they claim the item they are commenting on does not even exist. For some reason, the WAC don't understand the science they are using to argue for the project. The staff don't understand the regulatory mechanism. Neither seem to understand what a concept or a plan or a design even is. And yet they are the ones responsible for informing the board so the board can make policy. It should not be up to residents to come back week after week to keep them, the board, and other fellow residents properly informed. What's going on? Thank you for your time. And congratulations to you all on your elections.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Dick Bolton.
Before I start my remarks in my 3 minutes, if you read the bylaws, you will see that the board is chosen by the Columbia Council, which meets to appoint the board. So this board has not been appointed yet.
Dick, please talk into the microphone.
And I was talking to, okay. So this board has not been officially appointed yet. If you wait until afterwards, nothing you do at this meeting really is valid because you're not members until the Columbia Council, which you all are members of, appoints you to be so. And this is the way it's been always done in the past. So I'm kind of baffled by what's going on here. Okay. Okay, that said, good evening. 8 years ago, I was a newbie on the board, and I didn't have a clue as to how it worked, but I've learned a bit since then, so let me give you some thoughts. First of all, you, the 10 elected members of the board, are CA. You may have once seen some people parading around I am CA t-shirts, but they are not CA. They are CA employees. You are CA, and you are legally responsible for everything CA does, everything. That doesn't mean you have to go out and mow the lawn, dredge the lake, or schedule lifeguards. Staff does that. And senior staff supervises the people who do what it takes for Columbia to be regularly cited as one of the best places to live in America. But that's not enough. You also need to make sure that your direction is carried out on time, on target, and on budget. Oversight is a critical part of your job. This is not micromanagement. This is your fiduciary responsibility. CA is very fortunate to have an outstanding professional staff led by a first-rate president and CEO. So your job shouldn't be that difficult. Nevertheless, you must never forget that you are the boss. Staff reports to you through the office of the president and CEO, your employee. During my time on the board, I've seen people who didn't seem to understand this relationship. They're a little wimpy about steering the boat. They seem intimidated by the folks they're expected to lead. Don't be afraid to hold staff accountable. Make sure the strategies and policies are carried out and goals are met. The staff is a great source of advice, but that advice is not always accurate and sometimes self-serving. Be wary. So let me provide some advice of my own. The board would be wise to put an independent law firm on retainer. Lawyers are hired guns. They serve the interests of those who hire them. Lawyers hired by staff do not necessarily represent CA. You, the board, are CA. And we know from experience, the board often needs to hire its own counsel in order to get straight answers. But anyway, good luck to all of you going forward. I think you'll find your work rewarding. I think you'll make some lifelong friends. And I hope you will, as I have, eventually retire from the board satisfied in knowing that you've provided a valuable service to our community. And one more thing, don't let anyone ever tell you the board is dysfunctional. You are 10 talented, dedicated people who are trying your best. If all 10 of you agreed on everything, 9 of you would be unnecessary. Discussion and thoughtful disagreement are what makes the thing work. It may look messy to those on the outside, but what do they know? Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Great.
Thank you. Next, we have Sarah Kellett representing Protect Our Ponds.
Hello, and thank you for having me here today. I'm Sarah Kellett from Protect Our Ponds. I live in Jeffers Hill. I wanted to share with you some of the fabulous progress that we've made on stormwater management in our community today. Some of you may know about the Sewell's Orchard Parks Pond project, and that is still pending. It's been quite an issue in Columbia, and I'm coming to you with some good news. So basically, about a year ago, residents found that DPW had plans in place to do some maintenance on the park. And for any of you who know Sewell's Orchard, you know that it's probably Columbia's best hidden secret. It's got probably the most wildlife of anywhere in Columbia, maybe even all of Howard County. You see birds and you see all kinds of species that you don't get to see other places. And it's a very precious place. There's a lot of amphibians there even, and amphibians are really struggling right now in their numbers. And so it's really a place for people to be able to bring their children to create a relationship with nature. And for all the residents who are around there, it is what defines our neighborhood as home. It certainly does that for me anyway. So DPW was planning to, first of all, I don't think they realized that, and they were planning to do some maintenance in order to meet code requirements that to a degree were necessary, but they did not consider the residents or the wildlife at all. And they were using methods that they've been using for probably the past 30, maybe 40 years. What happened was once residents came across this information, particularly Bob Dober, who spoke earlier. Bob, as he mentioned, is an expert hydrologist, a geologist, a environmental planner, and NEPA expert. And he was able to point out to DPW how they could minimize the project and still meet code. And it took a while of back and forth because there was a lot of resistance on DPW's part. But eventually, and I'm so relieved, eventually they realized that he was right about this, and by not listening to him, it would be an incredible disservice to the community on multiple levels. And I say this, I'm concerned that there may be a little bit of resistance in listening to some of the resident experts, especially with the upcoming streams restoration project, which I am also very much opposed to. It's very important that we look at modern science, that we consider the views of the residents, we consider people who live there, and most of all, we consider our neighboring ecology. DPW certainly did, and I have nothing but respect for them at this time for that. It really puts them in a very positive light. Had they not, it would have really put them in quite a negative light. They would have done so much damage, damage beyond measure. And I hope that Columbia Association does not do that. I hope Columbia Association takes time to show that we value our land, that we value our animals, we value our natural resources, and you don't haphazardly allow companies to do stream restoration projects if they're not proven to be effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yes.
Reg.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Correct me if I'm wrong. When DPW first started talking about the restoration at Sewell's Orchard, they were talking about removing the wildlife, the fish, the turtles, all the wildlife. How were they going to do that? Do you remember?
In buckets.
In buckets?
Yes.
And they were going to remove them, and where were they going to take them?
Well, they were working under the assumption that many of them would just relocate themselves. And then there was also an assumption that they would just merrily swim downstream to the stream below. And then the remaining ones that were flipping around once the pond was drained would be taken in a bucket to the next pond. That's my understanding.
Were they going to empty the entire pond or just leave?
Yes, they were going to empty the entire pond.
Did they say how many wildlife they would potentially save or not save?
Oh, I mean, if they, with what they were planning to do, if they were able to save even 1%, I'd be shocked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But,
I did hear right then.
But Bob was able to convince them to use a cofferdam, which was well within their capability, but it was not in their plan at the time because, again, they hadn't considered the wildlife as they should have. We're hoping that this whole experience has created a culture change in DPW, or at least greater consideration within their approach.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions?
Follow-on question. Just thank you for your testimony tonight. To the best of your knowledge, is DPW at all involved in the stream restoration that's been proposed with Lake Elkhorn, or is that a separate?
It's separate.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Thank you.
It's separate.
Okay.
But I'm really hoping that CA follows their lead and is receptive to the feedback of resident experts.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you. Next, we have Charles McNulty.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time as on the CA board of directors, I assume eventually, and for letting me speak tonight. I live in Long Reach. Lived here 50 years. I remember when 175 didn't exist, for instance. My experience is I've had many phases of trade, coordination, surveys, coordination with authorities, inspections, permits, I'm not making this up, residents, through general management and permitting, including waterway improvements in Maryland, okay? I run and walk the stream pathways on this very high Tor Hill to Lake Elkhorn since then. I've observed CA doing stream and path and playground work all along, including Jackson Pond, behind Queen Maria Court, and the south side of 175 and so forth. So not standing there observing the whole time, but just spot observation here and there. I've read the Strategic Progress Plan of 2018-19, Versar's report, Doug Myers' commentary from Chesapeake Bay Foundation, particularly Versar's 2009 Water Management Plan. Much citizen commentary. So I apologize for being kind of late to the game to come up and speak, but I think I've caught up quite a bit. Okay, I've witnessed very much degradation of this streamway and its watershed, including innumerable locations where the bottom is eroded 3 feet minimum and up to 6 feet, even starting up at 108, down through High Tor, down to Jackson Pond and below. So we have culverts that come out with concrete, and we've got depths of 3 to 6 feet below that where it's been eroded over the years. When these things get eroded, okay, that goes into the stream water, which goes downstream into hopefully some interim sedimentation ponds. There's one, there's a forebay at Jackson Pond, for instance, which, by the way, currently is filled again. When those fill up, then the water carries the sediment further into Jackson Pond. As it fills up, it carries it further downstream, on and on and on, okay?
No, it doesn't.
What's that?
No, please let the speaker continue.
Okay. So so all this stuff, when it accumulates, has to then be dredged out. When it gets dredged out, it has to be sampled to see what the material consists of, and it has to get permitted where it's going to be set, okay? Some Jackson Pond, they increase the berm there. Across Tamar Drive, they put a fill area in. So a lot of things that have to happen. Okay, so I'm in favor of this overall stream restoration concept. And the basic reason why is, and I've seen this myself, civil engineers have to design per standards. The design then goes to MDE, who has to review and modify that per standards, and then the Corps of Engineers. Then that becomes a plan that it gets inspected all along. So there's lots of layers of making sure things get done right, not just guys out there driving bulldozers over everything. So I'm just in favor of it. That's it.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have Deborah Wessner representing the CA Watershed Advisory Committee.
Good evening. Welcome to the new members of the board, and congratulations to all of you for winning your respective elections. I am speaking on behalf of the Watershed Advisory Committee that was chartered by the CA Board. Our advisory committee continues to recommend that the process continue regarding the restoration of the stormwater streams that feed Lake Elkhorn, and was supported by, and we recommended that to the CA Board. Tonight, I wish to comment on some statements that were made in previous speak out sessions, not tonight, but in previous board meetings. In one such session, a resident expressed great concern about the plan because it included Reach 1, which runs from High Tor Hill to Jackson Pond, an area that has pathways that are near Phelps Luck Elementary School. The resident was concerned that dangerous equipment might be used there and that the equipment and the work that was being done might pose a danger to children who use those pathways. Unfortunately, the resident was unaware that Reach 1 had already been removed from the prospectus plan in April of this year. That announcement was made at a previous board meeting and is clearly shown in version 2 of the project flowchart, which is available on the board's website. Reach 1 was removed for 2 reasons. The stream had degraded to the point where any restoration that could be done would not make the work economically viable. And second, The CA land that would be used for access to that area was so narrow that construction activities would have been too significant an impact on nearby residents. So you can be assured that there will not be work done in that section. Some residents have intimated that the CA staff do not or will not provide protection of natural resources and residential properties. The WAC was assured that additional protections have been placed in this project prior to the prospectus being developed and continuing today, so that residents and staff will have a clear understanding of what work is to be accomplished and where. For example, any trees that are stated to be removed in the final design will be clearly delineated on a separate sheet, so reviewers can easily locate the proposed trees, judge for themselves the impact such removal will have, and report that back to CA so that adjustments can be made if necessary. Existing pathway corridors will be used for access and for haul out of any materials. Construction traffic will be restricted to alleyways from the existing pathway and haul out corridor to the proposed active construction areas. Some examples are shown on the prospectus preliminary concept plans, pages 57 to 61 of the prospectus, which is available through the CA webpage. The actual routes of these alleyways will be selected during design to minimize tree removal and protect existing habitat. All such detailed design plans are subject to CA approval by staff who have backgrounds in stream restoration. The CA staff is acting to fulfill the CA strategic plan, which was approved by the board and is shown on the board webpage. Under the environmental sustainability area, Objective 2 states that CA will advance sustainable use practices and improve the quality of streams, ponds, and lakes. One of the action items for that objective is that CA will reduce stream erosion and flooding by deploying advanced stream stabilization techniques and reducing stormwater runoff volume by promoting best use practices for improved surface area. CA staff is doing both of those today. Thank you for your time. I hope you will continue to listen to both residents and CA staff as you make your considerations on this particular project.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Alan?
Thank you, Deborah. A couple of questions. One, just for curiosity, how often does the Watershed Advisory Committee meet?
The Watershed Advisory Committee meets every 2 months in session. We sometimes have special meetings in between those if necessary to consider specific topics.
And has that happened recently?
Yes, we did have a special meeting to consider a response to the board on the CWMP, which I will present next month.
Okay. How does the WAC respond to the concern that you talked about latest practices, and yet we keep hearing from people, we've heard it tonight, we've heard it before, that this is old science, this is not latest practices. How does the WAC respond to that?
The board has not, the WAC board has not had a discussion about that particular thing. We have not had information such as was cited by Bob tonight. I am glad to take that information back to the WAC and have them take a look at this in detail with staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you. Last, we have Jill Hurwitz.
Joel Hurwitz, I'm Vice Chair of the Harper's Choice Board, but speaking on my own behalf tonight. First, I want to call that I sent you all email regarding the order of the meetings. I thank Alan and Dick for recognizing that problem. It's part of a bigger issue I have with the governance documents and the discussion you've had with the ethics and overriding the charter provisions, because the document that locks the villages to CA is the clause in the Articles of Incorporation that talks about electing the members of the Columbia Council, who should nominate their members to then be elected by the members to the CA board. And it's only that document that seems to exist, because there is no document dealing with the Columbia Council itself, that you even have a meeting. As I said, you have a pro forma meeting that is becoming silly because it's electing a chair and a vice chair that never does anything because you never meet again. I also sent you an email about the problem that might happen next year if any of the villages, including Harper's Choice, need to have a continued annual meeting, and Alan agreed with that. Just the dates in the motion for electing the chair make it more ambiguous, and then you don't have to worry about it. In your presentation you're going to have from Dennis, apparently you're going to talk about your work sessions. For a long time, I've realized your work sessions are meetings. They require minutes. You don't have any minutes of them because you call it a work session, because you don't take any votes, except we'll call a bill at a meeting a few months ago, tried to get votes on the agenda. The fact that you approved the agenda at the work session, that's a vote. So why don't you have any meetings? And the fact that all these people who keep coming and talking about stream restoration, there's no record that they talk. You have to watch the whole video. And as an aside, you're not going to approve the minutes of this meeting for next year, so maybe you could put out a draft on that. And lastly, you're going to talk about Roberts, and you've gotten your book. The last meeting, you tried to table a motion. It's a pet peeve I have with the county council, and from Roberts for Dummies, it says that that person who tries to kill a motion by saying I move to table. Well, that may work in the legislature, but under Roberts rules, the motion to lay on the table refers to temporarily setting aside a pending motion to take care of something else deemed more urgent, like something else has come up. The proper motion is to postpone indefinitely or postpone to a certain time, because you're allowed to debate those motions, and under Roberts, a motion to table is not amendable. But motions postponed and most postponed definitely are. So
thank you.
Hope you can get that when you get to your discussion with that.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Thank you. That concludes resident speaker for tonight's meetings. To limit interruptions during the board discussion and voting, all members of the general public will now be returned to the audience. This means you'll no longer be able to show your camera, unmute your audio, but you'll be more than welcome to stay on as an attendee and watch the remainder of tonight's meetings. You can also watch a live stream on the CA Livestream YouTube page. Thank you so much for your participation tonight. I'll now take a moment to allow staff to make this transition. So next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes by consent. We have the May 12th, 2022 annual meeting minutes, the November 28th, 2022 special members meeting minutes, the February 9th, 2023 special members meeting minutes, and the February 23rd, 2023 special meetings minutes. So approved. Next, we have the election of the 10 members of the Board of Directors. For the attached resolution, may I have a motion to elect the 10 representatives of the Board of Directors?
I move we approve the resolution.
A motion by Andy, second by Reg to approve the attached resolution. Are there any objections to the attached resolution? Seeing no objections, the resolution passes by unanimous consent. May I have a motion to adjourn the annual meeting of the members of the Columbia Association? A motion by Keith, second by Reg. Any objections to adjourning? Seeing no objections, the meeting is adjourned at 7:50. So next, we'll have a presentation from Dennis on.
While my IT help is setting up, I'd like to say just a couple things in general. And one is that there's no question this has been a difficult year for CA. I mean, I think we'd ignore history if we did that. It doesn't mean we have to repeat it. We get a chance to reset that history. and that, out of our differences comes a better Columbia. Columbia is an incredibly special place. It's like no other place in the country, I think. And that it's not special because of the 174 tot lots or the 23 outdoor pools or the dog park or the golf course, whatever it is. I mean, there's so many things, it's hard to even remember them all. But it's special because of all the people that volunteer their time to make Columbia better. And so we are going to disagree, certainly, as we move forward, but I know that we're all working to make a better Columbia. So I'm really hopeful that this will be I'm really looking forward to working with everyone this year, and that we've got a lot to do. I've got a presentation, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on general board orientation and more time on specific committee assignments. So for the 6 board members who've been here for some time, this is going to be a repeat. But honestly, for the 4 board members who are new, it's going to feel like a repeat because a lot of this is information you already know. But we'll go through, and then I'm going to get some help from Jackie and Susan in terms of the committees.
If I could just ask, before we get into, where on the agenda are we?
This is actually just this is a presentation between meetings.
Between meetings, thank you.
It's actually at the, yes.
So we can, so I talked about this as general information about the board. So the key responsibilities of the board, one is to set the strategic direction for CA. Another is to hire a president, and that's in the works for this year. And a third is to manage the kind of the financial resources of the association and direct them, where they need to go to meet our strategic objectives. Code of conduct, I think this is simply, let's all agree to disagree, but when we leave here, recognize that we're all trying to make Columbia a better place. And so the civility code is, I think it's not something that I have to repeat word for word, but we all know what it is, and I'm looking for a reset this year, so to speak. We talked about, or Joel talked about Robert's Rules of Orders, and there is there's a Cliff Note version, so to speak, that is over on the side for those of you that don't want to wade through the several hundred pages. Frankly, I had to look in there a couple times myself. I'm not an expert, but that's how we run our meetings, and generally we don't get so involved in it that we need to be experts to run our meetings. So in terms of the commitment from the board, it's a lot. So that you have 2 scheduled meetings per month. There's a work session. There is a board of directors meeting. And there are numerous other meetings that come up during the course of the month that, we would like you to attend. There are village board meetings. There are events in Columbia. There are different places that you will be out in the community representing the Columbia Association. So in terms of the work sessions for the meetings, generally work sessions, you can't take a vote. In board meetings, you can. I think there are sometimes some exceptions to that, but they're very rare and few and happen almost never. In terms of the commitment, we talked about the expectation. There are the monthly board of directors meetings and work sessions. There are community meetings. There are village board meetings. There's the board operations committee. There's the audit, the risk management, and likely will be other committees that will come up during the course of the year. This is going to be a very busy year for the board. Resident Speak Out we start with Resident Speak Out. It's generally limited to 3 minutes for individuals, 5 minutes for people that represent an organization. And in theory, there's a minute to ask a question from each board member and a minute for the person to respond, although sometimes that goes a little bit longer. There is a board agenda topics log. So if there's something that a board member would like to place on the agenda, they would provide that to the president's office, who would then put it into a worksheet, which would be brought forward and reviewed, and then and almost always placed on some future agenda for the most part. Board-related committee, the Board Operations Committee meets quarterly to discuss, to set the agendas. It is comprised of the chair, the vice chair, the president, CEO, and 2 rotating members from the board. So everyone in this group will rotate through that committee at some time or another. The Audit Committee, I have Jackie here to talk about that.
The Audit Committee assists the board in fulfilling its oversight responsibilities for the financial reporting process, the audit process, CA systems of internal controls, and the ethics program. So committee members receive a thorough review of CA's quarterly financial results. They monitor the risks that CA faces and how those risks are being managed. They review the results also of internal and external audits and ensure that any identified issues are being handled appropriately and addressed sufficiently. So regarding qualifications, the committee's charter states that it is strongly preferred that board members with financial expertise serve on the audit committee. And then experience with our audit committee as well as continuity from year to year is also important. And finally, I'll just quickly mention that audit committee members contemplate particularly sensitive information in the course of fulfilling their responsibilities. And in that vein, it is essential that these are members who have consistently demonstrated the highest levels of integrity, objectivity, and due care.
Susan?
So the Risk Management Committee is a little bit of a broad name that implies more a broader purpose than it really is. So Columbia Association is self-insured for the first $1 million of general liability exposure, and this committee, the Risk Management Committee, oversees that self-insurance program for general liability. That includes oversight of the trust and the claims, the incidents that occur under general liability matters, the resolution of those, and other related administrative matters. There's an actuarial work that's done and excess insurance that's purchased. So all of those meetings are closed unless otherwise determined or voted. The committee meets generally quarterly and for about an hour, no more than an hour usually each time.
IAT, or Inner Arbor Trust, is the organization that CA set up to manage Symphony Woods. There are 2 board members who are elected to serve on the board of directors of the Inner Arbor Trust, and they meet once a month. And I think of Symphony Woods as kind of the central park of Columbia, so it's very important and lots going on there. Village boards, CA board members are CA's representatives to the village boards. It's another meeting each month that each board member is expected to attend. The CA board members report information to the village board and get information from the village board that they bring back to the CA board. So the impact of service on the CA Board of Directors, it's actually, you think about this organization and the number of people that live in Columbia, that the 10 people that make up the board have a huge impact on 100,000 people that live and work and play and make use of Columbia. So I can't understate the value. I really thank everyone here for their service, recognizing that, you're going to be out attending meetings, making decisions that, are going to make some people happy, honestly, and make others not happy in some cases, but they're all important. I like to think every single resident, every single voice is important. We're not always going to agree, but we're always going to pick up the phone and listen. If you, as a board member, I think that we're going to do much better collaborating and working together. And so I'm setting up meetings with the new board members, but I'm happy to meet with any board member on issues. And if that might include being out in the open space, doing pathways or tot lots or bridges or streams, or other pieces, or talking about sport and fitness. But I'd say my door is always open, but you guys aren't in the office, so that won't help much. But I'll pick up the phone. If there's something that you'd like to talk about, I'm there to listen. And that's a great picture of Lake Kit. And with that,
Are there any questions? No questions. Oh, thank you. That's a good presentation. With that, I will go into meeting 2. There's actually a natural break in meeting 2 for the policy acknowledgement. So I will start meeting 2, and then we'll take a break in the middle to sign the policy documents. And so we'll go from there. Good evening. I am Eric Greenberg, Chair of the FY23 CA Board of Directors. Following past practices, I will act as chair at the beginning of this organizational meeting for the FY24 Board of Directors. There will be a vote in a few minutes to elect the chair and vice chair of the FY24 Board of Directors. The individual selected as chair for the FY24 board will then preside over the rest of this organizational meeting. Please remember that this meeting, as well as the upcoming organizational meeting of the Columbia Council, are being live streamed. You can find the agendas and background materials for all this evening's meetings on the CA Board of Directors website. Links to these documents can also be found in the description section of our YouTube live stream for those that are watching this meeting there. If you are virtual, please mute your microphones unless speaking. If you're in the room, please ensure that your cell phones are silenced. Raise your hand to speak, and the chair will record the names in the order which they are seen. If you are virtual, please use the chat feature. As we move through the meeting, each item on the agenda will be introduced. Before a vote is taken, the motion, as well as who motioned it and seconded, will be stated. If at any point you have trouble hearing anyone present, please say so. Tonight's timekeeper is Andy Stack. I will now call the roll. Sky.
Present.
Reg.
Present.
Lynn.
Here.
Karen.
Here.
Chris.
Here.
Alan.
Here.
Dennis.
Here.
Keith.
Here.
Bill.
Here.
Andy.
Here.
And I am here. May I have a motion to approve the agenda for the Board of Directors organizational meeting?
So moved.
Okay, can I have a second? Can I have a second? Motion by Lynn, motion by Reg, second by Lynn. Any objections? Seeing no objections, the agenda is so moved. At this point, we go into the policy acknowledgement. Before we go into the policy acknowledgement, the chair has a motion to bring. The chair moves to postpone the implementation of the Code of Business Conduct with the amendments approved by the FY23 Board of Directors on April 27, 2023, and to postpone the implementation of the policy for reporting violations and the amendments approved by the FY23 Board of Directors on April 27th. Now, the reason why this motion is being made is to allow CA staff and legal counsel to confirm the internal consistency of both documents, to obtain a legal review of the specific amendments in both policies, and to incorporate the new concepts of a new ethics policy in the policy for reporting violations, and also to bring the revised documents to the FY24 Board of Directors for review. So with that, can I have a second for the motion? I have a second by Keith. Is there any discussion on the motion on the table? Keith.
A friendly amendment, I'd like to add a date for completion of the review and information to the board. And I'm going to ask Dennis to provide something that's reasonable for us to have that reconciliation.
so we had talked about the first meeting in June, which is June the 8th.
June 8th?
June.
The June 8th?
So that would be the work session. So that means that
Yeah, so it would be
vote at the next.
be voted. So it'd be come to the board for the work session on June 8th, and
So
the
my
vote would be in the
friendly amendment is that we would have the information and wrap this up by the end of June.
That's fine. I accept that amendment. So the amendment will be tacked on that this will come back to the board at the June meeting work sessions to be wrapped up by the end of June. Any further discussion?
Go ahead, Bill first.
Bill first. I saw your hand first. But
All right,
Bill.
all right. I was trying, man.
It's all right. It's all good.
All right, all right. I just want to be clear. We're saying that the resolution of any internal conflicts that may exist are ongoing, and we'll have those ready by the first meeting in June to consider. Are we going to do this all over again then we will have an opportunity to provide amendments to that, or how is this going to go forward? Because this is a concern I have.
So clearly, clearly if we keep going through this process of amendments and going back to legal review, this goes into an infinite loop. So Yes, so I recommend at that point that we don't add any more amendments unless there's something really urgent that someone sees, but there shouldn't be because it'll have gone through legal review. If there are amendments, those amendments should have to go through legal review first. So if you want, so basically something would come at the June work session. If you have an amendment, that would have to be addressed early, and that would specifically be reviewed by legal. So at least at that point, if there are any amendments, you know that we can get some legal advice on the amendment in addition to the main policy.
Second question, and then I'll get out of the way. I apologize. Shouldn't this be handled by the chair of the new board, the newly elected board, rather than making the motion now? Would it be more proper to do this after the board chair and vice chair are selected for this year?
Well, the problem is we have to sign a policy.
Right, but you're now directing what the board does for the FY24 year.
I understand, but we've got to sign the policy. So if we don't pass this, then we'd have to theoretically sign the policy that we passed in April, but we don't actually have that because that hasn't gone through legal review. So that's why this has to be done now, because the next step is to sign the policies before we get into the main part of the meeting.
Thank you.
So, Reg?
So I'm going to be totally honest. I'm thoroughly confused as to what the heck we are trying to do here. I mean, are we trying to? Is this for the ethics policy, all those other things, or is that, or what am I looking at here? I'm confused.
So I'll provide an explanation. So basically, at the end of FY24, the board passed a ethics policy, a revised ethics policy. Actually, it's basically a brand new ethics policy. After staff reviewed it over the last couple of weeks, they found with legal counsel, they found some inconsistencies between the ethics policy, the code, and based on those inconsistencies, what staff is recommending is that those inconsistencies get reviewed and they report back to the board to try to address those inconsistencies. So the issue before us is that, okay, so but the new policy has some inconsistencies that need to be addressed. So what basically staff is asking us to do with this motion is to sign the existing previous policies that we all signed those of us on the board signed last year, which have been vetted, and then when come June, we'll get the new policies that have gone through legal review, and with any changes based on what we get from legal counsel, and then we could go forward with the new policy. So basically, what we're basically doing is basically extending the old policy for another 2 months, or actually another month now, just to get another set of eyes on the new policy, and then we can vote to basically implement the new policy.
So you're talking about tonight signing
the old policy.
And then a month later, possibly signing
a new policy to replace the old policy.
Wow, this sounds like the government.
I had one piece of clarification. It wasn't the staff that just came back with this. The board directed the CEO to go back and to reconcile these items and to bring any amendments, because there was a lot of change that was happening on the fly, and we wanted to make sure that the documents worked well together. So the reason why I support doing this is because, number one, we have a firm end date in terms of dealing with this with the ethics policy, but we asked the staff to do this, and I personally feel comfortable signing the prior one until we have an opportunity to get it reconciled. It was a long, hard road, and the last thing I want to do is to have differences within that policy that cause more issues.
Well, you realize that listening to all this sounds like a bunch of. It's totally confusing, and I've been on the board before, so it's not new to me. But listening to this now just sounds kind of shady. So I understand what you're saying. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to sign something that you had before, that maybe in a month we're going to be signing another one. It just doesn't sound good.
Yeah. And basically the reason is we want to make sure that we're signing something that's applicable and and doesn't have any holes in it. So
what happens if you just...
Could I get in the queue?
Okay, yeah, go
sure.
ahead.
Alan?
Yeah, I guess, Reg, what I would say is that if we're strictly following what we voted for, we voted on a new policy last month. And so really, if we're not going to sign that one, we need to make a different decision. So this motion allows us to keep the old one in effect for another month before we finalize the new one. But we did vote on the new one, so it ought to be what we sign unless we make a different decision.
Lynn?
Yeah, this may be an opportunity to show we trust staff. We know we have, it is confusing. You have not, you haven't been through all these meetings, but we have to have a policy in place in order to be able to vote. Since there isn't one ready to be signed, going with the old one makes sense. And we are promised that the new one will be ready and we will be able to sign it in June.
Chris?
Is there a real short version of what the difference is between the old one and the new one? Is there some significant difference between those two that is likely to have an impact on the operation of this board between today and June 8th or when the end of June when we sign this?
So in my opinion, the content is fairly similar. The format is very different. So it's hard to provide a red line because the format is very, very different. But from the code perspective, and what we'll be signing tonight is the code.
I mean, the content is what I'm...
Yeah.
There's nothing where we saw, oh my goodness, there's this glaring thing where somebody could sell off pieces of Columbia themselves, right? There's nothing that's going to have a major impact on the operation of the board by signing the old one while waiting for this new one to get vetted.
Yeah, certainly not by signing the old one.
Okay.
But we've been using the old one for several years now.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, just another board member's point of view really quick. There are several substantial differences between the documents we'll be signing tonight and the one you'll be presented in June. I don't want to take up the entire board's time tonight, but you should be aware that there are very substantial differences.
So there's conflict there.
Yeah, the original document said that, the board speaks with one voice. The new one says any board member can criticize at any time and speak at any time. The new one, while they both absolve, well, there are many differences. If you watch the last meeting, you will see there are many differences.
I will say it's complicated.
From an operation standpoint, I hear, Reg, what you're saying, Chris. I'm right there with you. I personally, and we can agree to disagree based upon what I've seen. I don't believe there are material enough differences that you should feel uncomfortable signing one versus the other. Some of the major components that again, I would like to consider for the future, not before June, would be around, I'll say, an ethics committee, which was a substantial discussion, but I don't see anything that's materially different that we have to be worried, or you would have to be worried. And again, that's just my opinion. And coming from someone who came to the board specifically to focus on operations, that's sort of my passion. And I want to keep it simple also, and I'm hoping that this is the beginning of a new look at how we're doing things.
And I'll say what we're doing is the more conservative approach, because we're signing the policy that's have been in existence for the last several years. So it's not like we're changing anything right now. We're basically going on the same course.
There was nothing glaringly wrong with the old one, right? That was a huge gap that somebody noticed. There's a minimum time of exposure here, right? There's only 1 month in between the two. And the content is mostly the same. There's no major risk items in there. I don't see that's, I see your point that there are substantial differences. It'd be great if there was a catalog of those in inventory, especially for those of us that are new and don't speak legalese, to know exactly what those differences are and what the new document we are beholden to because of that is different from the old document. I don't know if that exists or if it could exist, but given all those, given the low risk and the short time, this seems like it's the right way to go.
Any
With
further
understanding that the new one needs to be looked at as well.
Any further discussion before I call the question?
Yeah, can we distribute the red line version even before the June timeframe, just so that everyone who's who's newer can have an opportunity to digest.
Yeah, we can send that out.
Yeah.
Any further questions, comments?
Just one last thing. I understand, I appreciate what you're saying, because I'm a commander, and so I command troops, and I have to communicate, and I've got to lead, and I've got to give direction. And if it's confusing, they can't do what I want them to do.
Agreed.
So that's why I'm very adamant that, when we communicate, that we communicate clearly, and so the people everyone understands what it is we're doing. It came across as confusing to me.
Just if we're going to provide the red line, I think it's also imperative to provide the amendments that passed at the last meeting of the FY23 board, so the folks here know exactly what beyond that red line was actually enacted.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Any further questions or comments? With that, I will call the question. On the motion, as with the friendly amendment that this will be resolved by the end of June, Sky, how do you vote?
I agree.
Reg?
Yes.
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The motion passes 10-0. So with that, that brings us to the assigning of the ethics policies. So at this point, every board member will sign the previous ethics policy.
Classic ethics policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this the financial disclosure in here?
In this packet, it's financial disclosure. Is the financial disclosure in here?
Yes, it's got all, and it says here, complete 3 pages, so that's.
Okay, but they don't have to sign this now. They gotta sign this.
I've read it a lot.
Yes, but they do not have to complete.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so
do you have?
I don't have a packet, no.
So every board member is required to sign the ethics policies. So we have so you have the ethics policies that every board member needs to sign. There's also a financial disclosure, and those need to be returned in 2 weeks.
Correct.
So
Did Alan get a chance to sign these prior to the meeting?
No.
Okay.
But he signed these because these are the same documents they signed last year.
Mr. Greenberg, does that imply I don't have to sign these up? Or what's your point there?
Sign them. That's my point. Date.
Oh, yes, 11.
Do you want to check your endorse of the comments? These are the.
When we take them back, we can give this a signature now.
Okay, that sounds fine. Where is our financial sheet?
Am I a new entrant or am I an annual?
Where are you?
What page are you on?
It says 7, but it's got to be way more than that. This is,
The financial disclosure report, correct?
You
yeah.
can take that and.
Yeah,
Take that.
yeah, you can take the financial disclosure.
I have 2 weeks time to fill it out?
Yep.
I mean, I still won't know the answer.
Oh, yes. That's true. I got you. Oh, man.
I will.
But we can chat about that, right?
Be careful.
What am I?
This one I don't think needs to be signed. So this is- Meetings.
There was a separate document. It was up like this. Yeah, that's the one right there.
Ken, do you hold these back?
Same page. Good. One of those.
Well, it's.
Sorry.
We have an extra page so that you can keep, the entire policy. Nope. I'll take my pen, yeah.
So that page can be returned and the page that's clipped can be saved as part of the docs. Susie, here's a page here that's got a policy on it. So there's an extra page that inside the truth, and you have to complete policy.
Don't use the phone, Beth. Okay. Don't use the phone.
And this one I don't have to fill in, I am.
Okay. Everyone?
Yeah.
Board members?
Yes.
Just
But everything
real
else I've
quickly,
signed you would like back.
There are two IT policies that are at the end of the packets. You'll notice that there is an extra page 3. That extra page 3 is the page you should sign and return. That will allow you to keep the page 3 that is stapled as part of the packet and has a blurb as a whole document. And then we can just have a copy, an extra copy with the signature.
So you just want the signature page?
Yes, there should be an extra page at the back, Reg.
So you just want the
And you can sign there, and then the packet itself with that signature page can be saved because there is language on that page that is part of the policy.
One question. This
Is it the same with a
this
conflict of
packet
interest?
doesn't have any signature.
This is the policy for
So I've got this
reporting
page.
violations.
I don't need to sign this.
Except
So
we
you
use.
do not have to
Okay.
sign that. That is just a policy
Oh, hold on, I'm doing it backwards.
Okay, so these go here, these.
I am.
And then this is, I think I've signed everything. No, that's okay, that's okay. It's not gonna be in the same order that you gave them.
Everything? I think it's all. Thank you. Double check it, please.
We will. There you go. Have your clippies back
I don't
too.
think I missed anything, but please double check it.
Okay, so the security works and training.
Yeah, so the financial disclosures is this 3-page document. Read it over and come back in 2 weeks with this filled out. Yeah.
I mean,
If we find
you always doing it at my regular day job anyway.
if for some reason they know it's that,
Okay.
we'll get it back to the,
Okay.
I think it's possible that
All the training is getting.
I assume we'll have extra copies in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll have hard copies here. So,
Need to film
I was
out.
in San Francisco for 10 years.
Okay.
Looks like there's a
Office
Chapman.
was on Market Street
Okay.
when I was in the office. In the Transamerica building, that was my view.
They're actually headquarters. No, Cedar Rapids. Oh.
And it's a conflict of interest, we can hold on to that and fill it out.
Yeah, the conflict of interest financial disclosure report, it looks like this.
Yeah.
Should have a sticky that says complete 3 pages. You can do this at home. So you can do this at home, come back in 2 weeks with it.
Cool. More to report on that one.
Signed all these.
Yeah, if you need to go through, figure out when you need to report, it's in there.
All right, my friends, we're about 90 minutes in. Everybody okay? Still feeling refreshed?
Made it. Take it, need witnesses.
Those will be signed.
Never lead witnesses.
Is the law officer's room still
Over in the corner?
over in the corner?
And I think it's 1414 or 4411.
Are you a man or woman? The ones are, I think if you're a man, it's 4-4.
Like really disappointing.
There's a chat from,
Hey, Reg, it's on the desk out front too. It's written down like right on the left-hand side of the window.
Oh, the code?
Want to give people a 5 minute recess? Yeah. Okay. We'll take a 5-minute recess after you've signed, so please come back here by 8:30.
are you ready for me to take that? Thank you.
Are you staying for the whole I just want to see the
You want me to witness?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. You just need me to make a motion? I think there's some. If we need it. Just give me a wave.
Do you want me to also like throw it on the Washington or just leave it out?
I think everyone can see it.
Okay.
Bill, you're okay with that?
With what?
If you can see it, right?
What's that?
I can turn around.
Like, do you want me to also like throw it up on that screen or is that?
It's fine.
I think we're fine. We'll figure it out.
Oh, Sky. Okay.
Are you ready for me to take that, or are you need more time?
Oh, no, I gave it to Susan. She got mine.
And we were just really, both were signed.
Yeah, I gave one. Oh my God, totes.
The next on the agenda is the election of the chair and vice chair of the Columbia Association Board of Directors. I'll now open up the nominations for chair of the Columbia Association Board of Directors. Can I get nominations for chair of the?
I'd like to nominate Andy Stack as chair.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Eric Greenberg.
Any further nominations? Seeing no further nominations, I will close the nominations and I'll ask staff to bring out paper ballots.
You're coming up now.
Dennis, how do you want me to vote?
Could you send your vote to Janet? Would that be appropriate?
By email, or should I chat?
I wouldn't put in the chat.
What?
What?
Or you can send it to me.
Or you can send it to Dennis.
My email address. I don't get one there.
Okay.
Right, that's for you.
Okay, so.
Send it to Dennis's email?
Yes. I got two of them now.
Do we have signed ethics policies from Alan? I'm sorry. Are they in here and witnessed? No?
It's in the commentary. He said this since the ethics policy is the same since the prior year.
Yeah, he
there's
signed
no expiration date. He wants it as saying it's carried forward. So it was signed and acknowledged in the prior time frame. If Dennis, if you feel differently, then we need to. Yeah. I was just pointing out what's in the commentary.
Thanks. I can barely read it from here. So, Alan, can you email Dennis your vote?
I'm working on it.
And
Dennis, will be coming from my work email since I don't have, I'm out of town for work.
Okay.
It has been sent.
Can I take this from you?
Thank you.
1 minute, fold in. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So I'll have Jackie help me forward them.
Where are the other?
I gave it to Jen.
Can I ask a question while they're counting?
Sure.
So for those of us that are new and, may not have been following as closely, is there a way to get information about candidates, right? I mean, obviously just the candidates were just nominated and we just voted, but I have not worked with either of you extensively, so I don't really have a deeply held opinion. Is this the normal way that it happens, or is there any kind of a way that can be remedied in the future?
We have at times had candidates make statements during the meeting.
Sorry, say it again, Alan.
We have at times had candidates make statements during the meeting and answer questions.
Okay. Yeah, because really it just comes down to kind of a coin flip for me at this point, right?
And I think I might have accidentally short fused that one.
It's 5-5.
Okay. Well, in that case, this might be a good opportunity to make statements. So I will let Andy make a statement if he wants.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Eric.
What was the vote?
5-5.
5-5, thank you.
So I did send out an email kind of describing some of the things, but I want to give you a little bit of background. I actually came to Columbia in 1977, and in 1978, I won a term on the Oakland Mills Village Board, and then another term in 79, and then in 1980 I moved to Allen Brown, and I have been on the Allen Brown Village Board since then. So many years of service, and then in 2010 I became a member of the CA Board of Directors. So I bring a lot of experience to the position. You'll also find, and you can ask people, I have been chair before. I usually try for consensus. I try very hard to keep the meetings running. I'm a very organized person asking for following our policies. I will say that I moved here because I really like Jim Rouse's vision, and working with the villages and then CA was a way that I could contribute to the community. I have been chair of the CA Board of Directors before. I've been vice chair. I've been chair of committees. I've been chair of village board, been chair on other organizations. So I do bring a lot of experience in those terms. I want to say that in the many years that I have run for the CA Board, I've always told my residents that I'm here to, ensure the CA stays fiscally sound, to ensure that the money is spent wisely, to ensure that the open space remains and is maintained in an appropriate manner. And that's pretty much what I have run on and I continue to offer. Just a second here, in case you have any other questions. Get my little notes out.
You got a book there?
Yeah. I wasn't sure whether or not we were going to do. But I really do think I can be a very effective interface between the president and the board, because I've done it before. I am well recognized by staff in the community. I've worked with them for a number of years. I have a good deal of knowledge regarding CA and how it operates, and also the board and its policies. I've led 2 transitions for hiring a new president. This will be number 3. I have also worked with 2 strategic plans. One was, I will say, a top-down plan. One was a bottom-up plan. So I bring experience in terms of that. I know I've worked with a number of you before on different boards. I am committed to CA's mission. I'm committed to, the vision of Columbia. I can dedicate the time. And so I ask for your support, and I'm also willing to answer any questions you might have.
And I will try to be a little briefer. So I'm basically the relative newcomer to Columbia. I've been living here now 5 years. We just bought our house 5 years ago in River Hill. I'm also a little different in that I'm one of the younger people on the board, and I've got a 4-year-old. So I see a lot of things that other people might not see. So we make a lot of use of the gyms, the tot lots, and I experienced that through the eyes of my son. In fact, if anyone reads my council column in the River Hill newsletter, you'll see that I make references to my son, and you see just how important all the amenities that Columbia has, how important that is to him, and I'm passionate about that. In fact, I'm so passionate about that I dedicate my Fridays. I'm fully employed but I dedicate my Fridays to work with CA, to make CA a better place. I do that because I love CA, I love Columbia, and yes, it's great, but there's still work to be done. There's always ways to improve things. And being able to set up a working relationship with the board, with staff, is only going to make Columbia better. Yes, we're in a period of transition, and right now I've been having a great relationship with Dennis. He's been fantastic to work with over the last couple of months, and I'd like to continue working with him as your chair. So with that, I will accept any questions.
Could I hear kind of what the top 3 issues each of you think is the most important to the board and the way that you plan to address them?
So, mind if I start first? So, really, the top 3 issues for this year is 1, the hiring of the CEO. That's key. The CEO has a huge impact on the organization, obviously, and that's going to be a major decision for this board. The second big thing is the strategic plan. So every 5 years, we create a new strategic plan, and that really defines how CA is going to operate 5 years into the future. And third, as we've here, meeting in, meeting out, is the Lake Elkhorn restoration project. This is a massive project. It has huge repercussions for our open space and certainly for the people living near that area. So those are probably the 3 major issues that this board is going to be faced with over the next year. And one of the ways I'm trying to address that, and I basically started this over the previous year, was let's set up a couple committees. Set up a committee to basically spearhead the presidential search, set up a committee to spearhead the strategic plan, and let's, in committees, get people that are focused on that one key item, get them working together, get them interacting, and be able to have all sort of, the sausage stuff be done in committee, so that when it comes to, it can get refined there, we can get a lot of interaction there. And then when it comes to the board, we have something to vote on that's in pretty good shape with maybe some odds and ends that needs to be ironed out. But by having a committee structure, I think we can be more efficient as a board and more efficient as an organization.
Okay, I would say my top issues, and I won't rank them anyway, but just say they're my top issues. As Eric said, hiring a new president. What I would like to do is that we have a existing RFP that seems to meet our needs. We've had used it at our last one. And what I'd like to do is have the board approve that and get the process started. What we had done last time, I will probably do again, which is a small committee to do the evaluations and bring back a recommendation to the board for the selection of a firm to do the search. The firm will provide a more detailed process of how they intend to go about searching. And then you let the firm work. And when it's ready, it'll come back and we will start involving the board members. For the strategic plan, I really feel that the board needs to take more of a policy, a higher level view. Staff can start the strategic plan. They have a great deal of experience. We feed in information. And then at some point we get involved as a board. But I don't think the board as a whole has to spend a lot of time on the details on how we do the strategic plan and all the other things. The process will come, when we select, staff will select the company to do the strategic plan for us, and we'll lay out a schedule with appropriate places where the board gets involved. So I can tell you one of the difficulties that I have had in the past, and I constantly tell the boards that I chair, is we are volunteer members. We only have so much time. And I'm very cognizant of that. And so I want to make sure that the board meetings are run efficiently, that we do make progress and do things. And I will say that's my last of the 3 priorities, is to basically improve the effectiveness and efficiency of the board. A lot of our policies are outdated. We just need to update them. I do not want to experience another year-long ethics policy drag out. My view is you come up with an idea and then you send it to staff or staff in some small committee, and then they come back with a recommendation, and the board focuses and debates on the recommendation. We do not try to do it ourselves. That way, what the board does is the recommendation is ready, we have our discussion, we can move on. But there are a lot of other things I would like to do too. In particular, I would like to improve some of the board training. I would like us to get together more often to get to know each other. I'll say maybe a few more social activities so that we understand and we can relate to each other, and not just show up here and kind of like, have already taken our positions. I think we desperately need a director's handbook to guide new people. I just don't think we do that good of a job as a board in training new people. You come in and you wonder what's going on. So that's really a big focus for me, I'll say.
Thank you both.
Hi. Thank you guys for both wanting to be chair. I appreciate that. My question gets back to former board member Dick Bolton, who during Resident Speak Out said that the Columbia Association extends only to this board and made several disparaging remarks about staff. I was wondering what you guys thought about that Resident Speak Out comment, and I would like to know what you guys think the CA board can do to get staff morale back to where it was this time last year. So if you could provide some comment on that.
Yes, our relationship with staff is certainly been damaged over the last year, just as our relationship with the community has been damaged. And that's one of the things I think I can address because I do have a knowledge on working with staff for a number of years. I know many of them. I've worked with them. I think they respect me, and I think I can reestablish a good relationship with them and also have them work, I'll say, closer and better with the board. I mean, one of the things when I was chair, and I always think this is one of the responsibilities of the chair, is to make sure that the board requests, are done. That when we used to talk to the president, and this was the days before we had our new online tracker. But I would write down the comments I had from people, and then when I had the meeting with the president, I would say, look, we need to address this, we need to address that. I'm not telling you how to do it, but you need to reply back, you need to work. But I do think because of my long-term relationship in the community and with CA and working, and not just on CA, but I've been on budget committees, I have been on governance committees. I mean, you're going to find my name on documents going back 30 years. It's just that I do have the relationships which I think I can use to really kind of improve our relationship both with staff and with the community. When I was chair, I used to go out and visit each village, sit down, have a chat with them. Probably now we'll do it by Zoom, but I always found it good that I could go out and find out what was going on in the village, and the villages could actually talk. And I didn't go out just by myself. I went out with information. What were our goals for this year, what we were planning, just to kind of let the information go through. So I'd like to do that, and I think that really help. Dick's comment, I mean, yes, I understand technically, okay, we're the members. But, John Healy had a very good comment. Trustees, he saw, Rouse envisioned CA as the trustee, particularly for open space. I thought that hit the nail right on the head. Our job is really to be a trustee, okay? Our job is to take what's been given to us, preserve it, maybe make it better, and hand it on to the next generation. And you do that by communicating, you do that by being willing to go out in the community, you do it. And so I'll say I'm more into the trustee mode. I don't come with a set agenda. I kind of already told you what I tell my residents every time I run for election. And does that answer your question, Bill?
I think so.
So I'd say this. One of the things we need to consider is that we are representatives of each of our neighbors, of our villages. Our neighbors elected us to this position. Our neighbors are assessed an annual charge each year, and we're the body that is responsible for making sure that that annual charge is invested to the benefit of our entire community. So I believe that requires a more active role. We certainly meet a lot, and the reason why we meet a lot, as Dennis went through all the meetings that we'll be attending over the next several months, is because we're supposed to have an active role. We're supposed to be representing our neighbors. We're supposed to be helping our neighbors. We're supposed to be making Columbia a better place for our neighbors. That's what CA is all about. It's taking what we have and what was created and continually improving upon it, continually making it better, and continually having a vision to make it better. One of the things that we discussed during the last session to make things better, and one of the things that I introduced was, let's look at the tot lots. We've got 170 tot lots, and a lot of them are need repair, and the current. And the original plan was to replace them with 170 of the same thing. But one of the things that I spearheading was, can we do something better? Can we have tot lots or play areas that not just appeal to 2, 3, 4-year-olds, but can appeal to our residents as they grow from 2, 3 to middle school to high school to even adulthood? Can we have players that appeal to everyone? Can we have players that appeal to multiple interests? Does everything have to be a little 4-foot slide? Can we have a basketball hoop? Those type of things that they might be little. Some people might call it micromanaging, but they make a big difference to our neighbors. They make a big difference to the community, and that's one of the reasons why I want to continue to be chair. So I hope that answers your question. But Keith?
No, it didn't. I'm sorry. My apologies.
We signed a document. So I don't know the order necessarily, and I've only been with the board for about, I guess it's 3 or 4 months. So one of the questions I'd like to understand is when we talk about all of this time that we're spending as board members, one of the pieces that I brought up at prior meetings is that we have an impact on the diversity of the people who are able to serve. As you saw, Eric, when you spoke about being able to take off an entire Friday in order to serve, I'd like to understand your vision as a board chair for how we're going to actually reduce the amount of time that we are spending, both from staying at a strategic level with the CEO and reducing the amount of time that we have to engage there, and then also respecting board member time and working to engage and have, again, fewer meetings so that we can provide a little bit more opportunity for a broader set of folks who, are actively working or bringing something different to the table. And I'd like to hear from both.
Yeah, and I think the committee structure will help that. So without a committee structure, if we appointing a new CEO, creating a strategic plan would require even more meetings, more time by board members, more dedication. By having a committee structure, we can sort of split the work, at least split that initial work, and do a lot of the stuff in parallel. So one of the hopes of creating the committees is to actually save time. Obviously, if it creates more time, then we might have to reevaluate. So one of my goals as chair is to at least have some flexibility. I don't want to pass something and then if we go 4 months down the road and find out this isn't working, I don't want to be stuck with it. We need to have some flexibility, and if we see that things aren't working out things don't happen to work out with the committee structure, we should, as a board, revisit it and see how can we improve upon it? How can we make changes to make things better? And that's really the key thing. But again, I think the committee structure will help that. But at the same time, this is a huge position. There's no getting around that. This is running for this position, and we're basically impacting 100,000 people. That's huge. And that requires a lot of dedication. Yes, there's a lot of meetings, but at the end of the day, having served on this board for over a year and a half now, it's worth it. It's worth it.
So, this is add-on, because I don't feel like that answered the question about reducing time. That said that there's value in spending a significant amount of time. And the meetings that we're talking about, and again, not to pick on you, because I'm hoping that, Andy, you're going to answer this, but we haven't reduced the amount of time that we're engaged in meetings or looking at that. And I'd love to have a perspective on how we plan to, whether it's getting more strategic or, changing the way that we operate.
And a lot of that's going to, if you're talking about the actual meeting time, a lot of it's going to basically be working with the BOC, making sure that we try not to overload the agenda. But at the same time, it's hard. We've got a lot of different visions here, a lot of things that need to be done, a lot of different viewpoints. So again, there's a trade-off. Shorter meetings means there's less stuff that we can do. Longer meetings means we might be able to accomplish more things. So there's certainly a trade-off there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, Eric and I have definitely different opinions on this. So regarding committees, I like the use of, I'll say, short-term, quick committees focused on a particular issue. I'm not really thrilled with having committees because it still means we're going to meet. You maybe half of us, but the other half. Or you still might want to go to attend one of the meetings. So I really think what we need to do is be a more effective and efficient board. We need to make better use of our time. I do think we have too many meetings and too much things on our plate. One of the first things you have to do is decide what are the major topics you're going to address this year. Focus on those, figure out how much time. And then it gives you a little bit of flexibility to institute one or other, but we just have to make our decision. We can't do everything. We can't address every issue at one time because we're going to get burned out. We have far too many meetings that last far too long. So I would like more efficient. I was the one who came up with the idea of the agenda tracking log. So if somebody wanted to bring up an item, you put it on the log, and by the way, it has a priority. And so you can look and you say, is this important enough to make it on this year's agenda? Or can we delay till next year? Is it? Because we do have to have some self-discipline as a board. We do only have so much time. So I am definitely focused on making the board more efficient. And as I said before, one of the things I've noticed is I want written recommendations from, I'll say, staff or staff in a committee on a topic. I do not want to sit here in the board meeting and continually figure out what's our next step. Well, what are we really talking about? I got to admit, it's a little, I prefer that we see written recommendations, okay, and not, as we kind of did tonight, we got into, well, what's the recommendation? Well, and you've been here in meetings. What are we really talking about? What's the recommendation? Is it this or is it that? No. I mean, I grew up and in previous boards, you had a packet which said, here is the recommendation. And then we discussed it and we might change it. But everybody kind of knew what the recommendation was. And it would have the background from staff, which I think is really important. And that's the second point. We need to make better use and listen to our staff, because we have a good staff with a lot of experts who can feed us the information for us then to make a decision. And we are missing that. And so I'm going to focus on getting that done too. But I really do want to run more efficient meetings, and we're spending way too much time. I mean, it's just, we do have to make choices. We may like to do everything, but at some point we just have to sit down and figure out things. We used to have a board retreat at the very beginning of the year so that all of us could sit down and say, all right, here's about 10 or 20 issues we think we should discuss. What is it that we really should work on this year? Let's have a plan. Let's focus on that. And once you get that, then that helps set the agenda for the entire year. That also helps staff know what's coming up so that they can be prepared and give us the information when we want. we have not had a retreat in a while, and we really need one so that the board members can sit down and figure out what it is we want to do this year. Given, all of us know we only got so much time to, pick 5 topics. These are the 5 that we really want to focus on. And then once you have that, and if you're chair, one of your responsibilities is planning out the year. Planning out what the calendar is going to look like. Where can we address things? How much time? You work with the president. You work with the board coordinator. I used to have a whole calendar. Janet would kind of just gasp at me, and an entire calendar of the year laid out to figure out where things are going, how much time we can spend, where we're going to have input. Because without that, you're kind of operating blind. It's real easy to spin your wheels. And, that's...
I won't belabor. One of the things that I was looking for is really delegation to staff, and I don't know that I fully heard that in terms of the board role versus the delegation to, or further delegation to staff.
So I see it as not so much a delegation role, but a collaboration role, especially between the board and the CEO. And it's really a, let's take the issues. Dennis and I have a great working relationship where we take the issues, and if something comes up, let's, as a board, with Dennis, and then obviously with the rest of the staff, come up with some solutions to it. So it's not necessarily saying you do this, you do that, but come up with it collaborating, because if we just have staff go on and they come up with something the board doesn't like, well, that doesn't get us anywhere. And if board comes up with something that staff finds is completely unimplementable, that doesn't get us anywhere. So there needs to be a collaboration aspect to it. So I wouldn't necessarily say, we're going to start directing individual staff members to do things. That's not the way a board works. But at the same time, we have to understand that, yes, the staff reports to the CEO reports to the board. And at the end of the day, as everybody knows, with elections, we wind up reporting to our neighbors. So that's the way things work.
Okay, I know that a lot of discussion about operations and how what you're going to do when you become the chair, but my concern is that we've got a community that's been very angry at the board, doesn't trust the board, and thinks the board has let them down and miscommunicated to them. So going forward, Andy, you've been on the board forever. I don't mean to be mean, but you've been on the board forever. And Eric, you really haven't been on the board. So the community is looking for leadership. They're looking for someone who's going to, we need to bring back a sense of pride in this community, a sense of, that this board represents the community. This board is working with this, with the CEO and with the staff. So what are you going to do going forward to accomplish that? What are you going to do to make sure that we have, we're not going back to this stuff that happened in the past? It's done and over with. How are we going forward?
Let me answer that first, sure. So I'll start off with one of the reasons why I took off Fridays was to meet with the community. That gave me time to meet with individual community members. It gave me time to meet with individual board members, meet with individual villages during the day. So, and I intend to keep doing that because, granted, I'm the newcomer, not just on this board. I'm the newcomer in Columbia. I've only been here 5 years. So one of the things I recognize is I've got a lot to learn. I still have a lot to learn, even having served for a year and a half or so. There's a lot to learn about CA. In fact, I think even the people who have been here for many years, they're still learning things. But I understand that there's a lot I don't know, and there's a lot I want to continue to learn, not just from other board members, but also from the individual community members, whether they come to Resident Speak Out or just meeting with them to either walk the streams, meet them in their villages to understand what their key concerns are. Because at the end of the day, we need to basically take into account all these key concerns and figure out how to prioritize them, figure out how to, if we can, remedy them, and look for ways of making CA better for everyone. Because that's our goal. Our goal is to continually improve Columbia and continue to just make Columbia an even more desirable place that people want to move to, and that's our job. And granted, we've got a very talented staff to help us execute the day-to-day operations, and we've got a great working relationship, and with Dennis, who can help us address those concerns and come up with ideas to address resident concerns and make improvements. But that's what we need to do, is look for ways to continually advance. You cannot. One of the things I've learned is you can't stay still. You can't just say we're great here. We've hit the peak, because there is no peak. There's always another a challenge for us to achieve. There's always ways to improve things, make things better, make things more, make Columbia an even more desirable place.
So I would say number one is communication, better communication. Luckily, we have a lot of new communication methods, which staff is coming up to date on. And I think what we have to do is we have to make better use of them, and we have to make more use of our existing communication media. We have a very diverse community that acquires information in different ways. And so we have to make sure that we're out in the different areas so we can get our message across, because that's really one of the big things, is getting our message across. Second thing is, there are a number of people who watch our streaming meetings, which is very important. So think about the image you're presenting when you are being televised, when you're streaming. Some of our meetings have not been given the right image to the community. So you have to do that. You have to be more open. There's no question about it, especially given the past year we've had, which is very tumultuous. I already mentioned, I get out in the community. I show up at events, show up at activities, and I wave the flag, and I go visit the villages, because they also have a communications method, so they can get a message out. But it's going to take work, and it's going to take a while. I don't think there's any easy solution to magically suddenly improving. It's just going to take hard work and better communication. Does that answer your question?
That way.
If I might elaborate on that, yes, communication is key. I mean, in fact, I've written about communication a lot. Communication is key, but we need to also do something. We need to basically provide results, provide something to the community that they can point to that says, oh, this is an improvement. This is something that this board did that's improving our way of life, improving just living in Columbia from day to day issue. It's not just branding. It's actually doing the things and making the improvements necessary, and creating a vision that people can see that, oh, this is how this is going to progress over the next 5-10 years. And communicating that vision, but we still have to have that vision, and that's where the strategic vision committee would come in.
I think that one of the things we really need to do is make much better use. This is one of the areas where you can make better use of staff. We have a good communications department, new since you were last on, Reg, that we just have to make much better use of it. And the board has got to start thinking in terms of using those communication means that we now have. The board really doesn't do a very good job in using, I'll say, CA's communication capabilities.
Any further questions?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
This is directed to you, Andy. Mm-hmm. And Eric, you're welcome to respond, but it's really more specifically about Andy's experience. Andy, I absolutely honor your long service. I absolutely honor your depth of knowledge and your attention to detail. I see you as CA's historian, living history and ability to synthesize all that together. I think you perform a valuable service there. One of your strengths is clearly your experience, but it's also, of course, can be a weakness as well, because it gives there's a record. And one of the things that I know I did, and I know there were others on the board had concerns about when you were chair, is a sense that you were too close to staff, that you created rather than being a conduit, as much as you described yourself as a conduit between the board and the staff, that you were a filter. And I certainly experienced, and I know that others did as well, many times when it felt, our experience was that we would raise a concern to you and it wouldn't go any further. It was like met with a blank stare, and it was never sent anywhere, never went anywhere. I'm concerned with I understand your description and why you like it, of how you want the new strategic plan to be created. It's certainly a valid way of doing it, but to me it feeds into the same idea that, in my view, the word strategic plan has the word strategic right in it. That is a board function. That's not a staff function. Staff certainly needs to be involved, but it needs to be a board function. And so my concern is that you're related to what I was just saying, but in addition is that your tendency is to basically have staff proceed, and by the time the board gets a hold of anything, our only choice is really to rubber stamp it or to seem obstreperous. And so I guess, and these concerns have been brought to you in the past, and I have to say I didn't see much change over time. So I guess I'm going to give you an opportunity to address the concerns and to give an opportunity to let me know why I should trust that things will be different, or why I shouldn't even want things to be different.
Oh, thanks, Alan. First off, I will say that, the relationship between the board and the president is one of the key relationships. And if that relationship isn't working too well, it's going to affect everything. And so, the board chair and the president have to have a very good working relationship. Now, you're right that I have a long history, and so I know an awful lot of staff members. I can access them, but I think I do that in support of the board. I know you haven't always agreed, and I recognize that. But I think that I have represented well concerns that have gone off to staff, and I think we get results from them. Now we have new communications. We have the new board request, which now allows a much better tracking system, and we get the responses and we get dates. That has significantly improved, and I think that's going to continue to improve the ability of the board to get its request answered in a timely manner. And that doesn't really require me as chair to do anything, okay, because the system is set up and everybody can see it. Frankly, I'd like that we'd get more into that type of activity where it gets automated with processes so that we don't spend it. Regarding the strategic plan, I think we have a difference. I do not want to sit here as a board and create the strategic plan. I don't think we have enough time. That's part of the reason why we have staff. We set the direction. Okay, we can give them the parameters. But sit down and have to design it or work on it, is not a good use of board time. You set the parameters, you send it out to your staff, and then they bring something back and you get involved in it. we definitely have this disagreement, and we've had it for many years as to, how much time does the board have to spend on developing its own things versus, receiving the input and figuring out what to do.
I hear you. We do have a disagreement, and I think the strategic plan we created, if we'd only stuck to it over the last 5 years, was a really good one through that process. And the last thing I'll say is, sort of as you were talking about the importance of your relationship with prior presidents and all that, I was mindful of Sky Anderson's words at the last resident speak out that the chair is not the most important person. And my concern is that's what ended up happening all too often. Thank you for your response. I appreciate your thoughtfulness.
I will say, I didn't say that the chair is the most important person. I said that the relationship between the chair and the president is a really key relationship that can make or break the success of the board. As we've kind of seen in the last year, how the chair and the president interact. I can tell you, I interacted with, a number of CA presidents over the time. And sometimes that relationship has not been as fruitful as I would hope, but you get through it. You just keep working at it.
Thank you, Andy.
So if I might address that, especially regarding the strategic plan, we're elected on this board to set the policy, to set the strategic vision. That's one of the things we can't just delegate. That's something that we're elected to do as a body. That's why our residents elected us to serve on this board, to set the strategic vision for this organization that affects all 100,000 people. And it's critical that we exercise our fiduciary duties to do that. We can't just delegate. That's one of the things we can't just delegate. Sure, we need help from staff to help us with sort of the logistical aspects of it. But at the end of the day, we're the ones responsible for setting that strategic vision. We're the ones responsible for determining how this organization is going to progress over the next 5 years. That's why we are elected to be in these seats. And I'm concerned that the board might be delegating too much, because we have certain fiduciary responsibilities, and we need to make sure that we're executing our fiduciary responsibilities.
I will respond to the strategic plan, since it seems to be a topic of discussion. Ultimately, the board approves the strategic plan, and the board ultimately is supposed to monitor the strategic plan. But in the strategic plans that I have been involved with, there has been board involvement, but it comes at certain stages. We may have an idea session, okay? But it's not the board who then takes those ideas, puts together the stuff, figures out what it is. It's the consultant and the staff. So the board gets the ideas, the board works through it, but then it's the consultant and the staff who come back, and the board looks at it and says, all right, let's go to the next stage. So there's always a role for the board, but I really don't want the board to have to sit down and do all that work that we normally would have the consultant and staff do. There are points where the board gets involved, but to spend our time doing all the stuff, I almost call it like the administrative stuff. I mean, it's not, but it's putting it together. It's you got all the charts up here. Why? Do you want to give it to one of the board members to go off and try to put it together? The answer is no. It's why you do have staff. It's why you have a consultant. A lot of the actual crafting, of strategic plan, the details, is done by the consultant and staff. The board gives the ideas. The board sets the goals. But, if we're sitting here wordsmithing, spending an hour wordsmithing a sentence, Okay, that is not an efficient use of our time. So that's why I say the consultant with staff has to play a key role in this strategic plan, and the board's got to input where it's appropriate to make sure what it wants gets done.
Any further questions? In that case, we'll another set of ballots.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's okay, Chris.
Thank you.
You can just take that home.
I'm going to use my lucky pen this time.
May I borrow your pen? The ones I found the pen.
I do have to say, this is the most I've used a pen.
Dennis, I sent you an email.
In quite a while.
So Bill, did you hear what happened with our board meeting Monday night?
No.
Voting on the chair was 2-2. And it was 2-2 again. And so they decided to increase the size of the board by 2 people.
So was it 3-3?
To make it even again.
So was it 3-3 after that?
I'm sorry?
So was it 3-3 after that?
No, wait, what? Oh, I'm sorry. Those are 2 different topics. I put them together and they don't go together.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
So,
Just wondering.
yeah, one acquiesced to the other. So,
So it wasn't 3-3, only 42.
yeah, 2 different situations.
Of course, then you get 2 of them acquiesce to each other on opposite sides.
What happens if this vote
Well,
comes out 5-5?
there were other things we could have done as far as
Keep
the
going
chair
over
goes.
there.
We could have split the year in 6-month segments. We could have co-chaired. We
Is that
could
they
have
decided you take the first
put it
half
off
of
for
the
2
year,
weeks
I'll
and
take
gotten a
the
legal
other half of the year.
opinion. Yeah.
I thought so.
We have in the past in a similar situation with multiple tie votes, divided the year and did 6 months and 6 months.
Solve it the old way.
That's right.
We heard you, Alan. That's what Reg was saying also, that the 6 months, 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that one, Alan. Yeah, when we flipped, who was that, Dick and who was it?
Russ.
Russ, that's right.
Right.
It's 5-5.
Holy moly.
We back to,
Andy,
guess what we've done before?
do you want to split?
Yeah, split. I mean, we've done that before. Seems
So
to be
the
resolution.
one of you would be.
The way we did it
one
was
of you be
the one
chair,
who
the other
wasn't
one would
chair
be the
was vice chair.
And then flip.
And
Is that what you're
yeah.
saying? That's what we did before.
Yeah, that's what we did before.
Then you flip a coin for who takes chair first?
Well, I'd take the chair first because I'm already chair. That would probably make the most sense.
Or we could talk about it.
We could talk about it. We could talk about it, but that's my recommendation would be that, but,
We need a vote.
Oh, my God.
yeah, we would need a vote. So I will propose the motion that I be chair for the first 6 months and Andy be chair for the second 6 months, and Andy be vice chair for the first 6 months, and I be vice chair for the second 6 months. Can I get a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
I'll second. Any discussion on the motion?
I would rather that Janet write a number down between 1 and 20 and each one of you pick a number.
Okay, if
Might
that's.
as well leave it up to chance at this point.
That's another option.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, flip a coin. You know, that's.
Andy, how do you feel about it?
I don't know. I mean, so I've served in, where it has been split. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work.
What's that?
We're getting closer to arm wrestling.
There you go.
But maybe given that this is a transition year, it's better if we did pick a number or flip or something to make it. I mean, because I just see this as a very difficult year to kind of do a split when we have, say, different personalities. I mean, different views of how things should run. I think it would be very terrible for a new president to suddenly come in the middle of that type of transition. I've worked on the system where it has been split, and I can do that again. But I just think we're better off if we really just kind of make a choice and have a chair.
Well, we could take another vote again.
I don't know,
but I think that's futile at this point.
I think it's futile. I think, as Red said,
I know we
figure some way.
We had a ton of discussion, and the ton of discussion didn't convince anyone. I don't think any more discussion is going to help.
Yeah.
Or it may have convinced equal number of people.
Might have. I mean, there's no way of proving that. And anyway, you can have more discussion. It's also convince an equal number of people. But right now, there's a motion on the table. Or any discussion on the motion? Any other discussion on the motion?
The only other piece is it doesn't really give us an opportunity to talk about nominations for vice chair. And in particular, I had put my name in for vice chair specifically around, one of the issues that hadn't been discussed really here at the table is a lot of the challenges that we had last year with keeping up with. We never really talked about our strategic plans and progress. We really never reconciled with staff or reconciled with the community. And we also had some challenges from a governance standpoint. And the reason why, Reggie, you brought it up, why we focus so much on governance is because I felt like fundamentally one of the things that needs to be a focus is governance. And I wanted to provide that level of support. And the only way that I saw that based upon the committee structure in a reasonable way is by having a vice chair opportunity, assuming that there's alignment between the chair and vice chair to move forward.
And Lynn has said that she wanted to be vice chair too.
Yep, absolutely.
Either you take another vote or you do the split, and I don't really support anybody flipping a coin or a number if you're going to have a separate vote for a chair. So either have another vote or have or split.
Well, another way to do it is to
We've got another set of ballots.
separate
We
chair
need
from
three
vice
sets.
chair and not have the person who's not being chair be the vice chair, and still do have a separate vote for vice chair.
Yeah, we could do it that way where where we split the chair and then two other people would run for vice chair, and if the vote turns out the same way, that's another possibility. Sky?
Is there any way we could postpone it for 2 weeks? And in the meantime, everybody think and talk? And what about having a co-chair? I have no idea how that would work.
Well, that's essentially what we'd be doing. There's got to be one person running the meeting. So essentially, the proposal to split the chair would basically have two co-chairs, where one co-chair basically runs the meetings for the first 6 months, and the other co-chair would run the meetings for the second 6 months. So it's sort of along those lines.
Keith? I'll have one more. In the spirit of reconciling with the community and simplifying this process, since we're already off to a pretty rough start, I would recommend a flip of the coin, and I'd support the chair, vice chair situation just so that we can move forward with this and begin moving forward with the work of the board.
So explain that one more time.
My concern is, and one of the things.
Yeah, I understand that, but
okay.
Yeah, what
is just
do you
move forward, flip a coin, and then that will determine who starts with chair, and then we'll have the chair vice chair situation, and then they'll flip mid-year.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, we could flip a coin to see who starts, or if you want to just come to an agreement, we could do that too.
No, I mean, I think it's just easier to do do a random, but not necessarily us. If there's, as I think Chris or Regis suggested, you just put a bunch of numbers in and.
I think this decision is a little more important than leaving it to a lottery. Lynn, do you have a question?
Why not, if we're going to go random, why not just have Dennis flip a coin?
No, Lynn.
I really hadn't said anything at all yet.
No,
If we're going to do it by lottery, do it. I mean, there's no fair way to do this. You know, we can vote forever. Looks like it'll stay the same way. We can just end it
So,
with simple chance.
well, I think what Keith was proposing is to have a lottery on with the split who starts and who finishes. So I think you're proposing to have a split 6 month chair, and the coin flip would basically be who gets to start.
Sure.
And that's.
I mean, truly, these things, they're, in my opinion, we're spending a little bit too much time, and there's more important business to be spending time on. So if it's a flip of the coin, I'm going to have my opinion throughout the year, just like I would if I were chair or vice chair, and I think we need to figure out how to move on, because that reconcilement thing that we didn't really discuss is at heart here, and people are watching us, and I think we need to move on. That's just my position.
Does anybody have a bloody coin?
How about having like Dennis or something?
But what are we flipping the coin for?
So I'll make a formal proposal if that's appropriate. The proposal is to split the chair and the chair position between the two, and then have one be the chair, one be the vice chair, and then flip it mid-year. And the flip of the coin would determine who starts.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second that.
We already have a motion on the floor that was seconded.
I'm seconding it.
And I can't remember what the motion was.
So the motion on the floor was essentially the same thing, except for instead of flipping a coin, I made the motion that I would remain chair for the first 6 months, and then Andy would take over for the second 6 months. Basically as a means of maintaining continuity.
So can we call that question and put that to bed?
Let's call that question first. So I made a motion for myself to be chair for the first 6 months, Andy to be
Don't you
chair.
have an amendment and a second of the amendment on the floor?
No, because we didn't consider
No, there's no amendment on the floor. So we need to consider this question. And basically this is pretty much similar to what you're proposing, minus the coin flip. So the motion is to make myself the chair and Andy the vice chair for the first 6 months, and then flip the roles for the second 6 months. So I will call the question on that. Sky.
The only difficulty is that puts everybody on the spot.
Yeah.
Which is really unfortunate, especially if you want to start. I would suggest you withdraw your motion and simply go with the coin flip as.
We still have to vote on that motion too.
Well, we can say whether it's unanimous, and it might be unanimous.
Well, this might be unanimous also.
We're going down the same path.
Yeah, it's the same problem.
I mean, just last year, same path this year.
So. Yeah, it's the same problem, Andy. So I will. Okay, I'll add it this way. Are there any objections to my motion?
Suggestion was not an amendment.
But so let me to prevent putting people on the spot, I'll ask: are there any objections to splitting the chair, as I described in my motion, where I would remain chair for the first 6 months and vice chair for the second 6 months, and Andy would be vice chair for the first 6 months and vice chair for the chair for the second 6 months?
How does that avoid putting people on the spot?
No, I just asked. Are there any objections to it, Jackie?
How does that avoid putting people on the spot? I think you had an amendment. He may not have used the word amendment, but clearly, as you pointed out, Keith was proposing an amendment that was basically your suggestion, but changing the process for how we decide which of you goes first as chair.
Okay, I will.
To me, that's the amendment.
Okay, I'll accept the amendment to have a coin flip to determine who goes first. Are there any objections to the motion with the amendment now?
Please,
Bill?
please state it.
I would just like to make sure I understand what you're saying. The motion is that you go first.
No.
Coin flip it.
No. The motion is that there's a coin flip to determine who's chair for the first 6 months and vice chair for the second 6 months and vice versa.
I'm willing to vote on that.
Okay. So we'll take a vote on that. So we've got a motion with a friendly amendment by Keith to have to split the chair and vice chair roles between myself and Andy with a coin flip that determines who goes first for the first 6 months.
Has the amendment been seconded?
It doesn't need a second because it's a friendly amendment, so it's been accepted. It's as if I made the motion.
May I just ask and also point out that whoever is the chair first, is that person have sole discretion on deciding on the committees? Because that impacts the entire year. So that's something may want to factor into.
I think that's
your
something that the chairs would have to work together on.
Okay.
Is that fair? Okay, so that's something we'll work together on.
So like make a friendly amendment to include that the chairs will work together on the committee assignments.
The chairs will always work together on everything.
You know, the community's watching us.
Yes.
We look kind of really stupid right now. Let's get on with this.
Yes, let's get on with this. So are there any objections to the motion? Seeing no objections, the motion passes. You want to take out a coin?
No, I don't have a coin. Anybody have a coin?
Yeah, so.
Is this the Super Bowl coin?
Okay.
I'll choose tails.
I can facilitate this one. Eric, do you want heads or tails? I mean, we're getting too ceremonial here.
We thought you got a ceremonial coin.
No, I'm just saying we're getting too ceremonial. We need to move on.
So, heads, tails?
I'll call tails.
I'll take it.
in the air. Come on.
Heads.
Okay.
Heads.
Oh, that's me.
Unless you want to switch it.
No. We will.
Oh, I get the coin?
We'll co-chair.
Put that in the air.
Okay, next on the agenda is the appointments to the committees.
American Action.
I'd recommend that we meet to discuss that at this point.
Yeah, but what I would say is I would ask people.
Yeah,
if there are
we
any
should-
particular chairs, and then when we figure out the names.
So would you like to just have people just email both of us their preferences?
Or if they have them tonight, if they want to try it tonight.
Yeah.
Want to try it? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's try it.
Can I ask for myself, just to make sure, and then other new board members wanted to just clarify some of the responsibilities at a high level, so that like we were talking about things like the board operations committee when Dennis, you were giving your presentation, that it was setting the agendas, and I understood it to be a little bit more than setting the agendas, but I just want to clarify some of that before, throwing hats in the ring.
So it primarily is setting the agendas. It's taking a look at the agenda log, and we spent most of the time setting the agendas for the coming meeting. That really is important. And that's why board members rotate into the committee.
So it gives everyone a chance to discuss the next 3 months and gives everybody some influence on it. Okay, so shall we try the next one on our packet? Okay, so the first committee, audit committee.
Yeah.
Who wants to be on the
audit committee?
Okay. So we've got.
How many do you need?
We need 3. We need 3.
Eins, zwei, drei.
We got 4, and we got 4.
We have 4.
Yeah, Sky as well. Oh, I didn't see. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
How does Alan raise his hand?
One recommendation I would have is Bill for continuity.
Okay, I'd like Lynn because she's also been on the board, on the committee. And Reg has been on the board before.
Yeah, and I've been on the audit committee.
Yeah, so there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, that was easy. So we got Lynn, Bill, and Reg. Cool. Next is Risk Committee. Can you get volunteers for Risk Committee?
I'll volunteer.
Okay. Any other volunteers for Risk Committee?
How many do you need?
We need 2 more. Okay, Karen?
Yeah.
Karen?
Yeah.
We need 1 more. Someone, anyone.
Well, you know, Sky wanted to do audit. I'll give her audit and I'll go ahead and take risk.
Thank you.
You okay with that?
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That was nice.
I'm sorry?
That was pretty sweet.
So that
Teamwork, yeah.
We got
What?
Eric, for purposes back here, we can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
Please speak up as we go through the list.
So right now we have Lynn, Bill, Sky on audit, and Reg, Karen, and Alan on risk. You confirm that? So now we have BOC committees. So we got basically 8 slots, so we have 4 BOC committees coming up. The first one is May 22nd. So the first question, I think the first question is who cannot make it May 22nd? So if you can't make it May 22nd, don't volunteer for being on the first committee.
One way to do it, though, would be just for the 2 of you to randomly meet out the slots, and then if people can't make what they've been assigned to, we can swap.
Well, I think for the next one, it'd be nice to make sure that we've got 2 people that can absolutely make it.
I can make it.
Okay, you want to be on the first one? And Keith, okay. For the rest of them, do you just want to email out and get people opinions, or?
Yeah, 'cause we've done that before where we just ask for the remaining 6 we have, 3 other meetings, if you could let us know which meetings work. And we really do want everyone to serve at least once, on the BOC.
Yeah, so there's 8 slots, and there's 8 board members that aren't chair and vice chair. So that brings us to board member liaisons.
Yeah, and that we usually just ask people, different committees.
So we could just go through the list, and if we get a volunteer, we get a volunteer, and if we don't, we don't.
Why don't we just kind of go, Karen, is there an advisory committee?
I would like to be on the Watershed Advisory Committee.
Okay.
Can I ask a question real quick? But despite my best efforts, I was not able to look at a catalog of all of the committees that are possible. Can we go through a list of those real quick, just so that I can be aware of that?
They're in the pack.
They're in the packet.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, there's climate change, aquatics, art center, aging well in Columbia, golf, health and fitness, multicultural. You'll take golf?
Yeah.
Okay, you got golf.
And keep in mind that you can attend any committee
Yes.
meeting you're open. So you don't, if you're not selected as the liaison,
okay.
you can still attend a committee meeting.
Tennis, teen, and millennial. Those are the committees.
I'll do the teen and millennial.
Okay, cool.
Can you repeat that? So for the record, for the note takers?
Yeah, so right now I've got Reg on golf, Bill on teen, Karen on watershed. Go down the rest. Climate change. Any volunteers for climate change?
Wait. The teen and millennial are 2 different committees.
Yeah. No, teen and middle. Teen and middle. So
you said
Bill's.
millennial.
Do you want to be millennial or middle or teen?
Millennial.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Thank you. So Bill will remain on the millennial. Did you also want to do teen?
Okay, yeah.
Cool. You got them both.
No.
Oh, you want to do teen?
I'll do teen and middle school.
Oh, okay, cool. That works.
Please say the name out loud.
Chris will be on, so Bill will be on millennial, Chris will be on teen and middle school.
Sky, any particular committee you would like to serve on?
Climate change.
Okay, works.
Eric, I'll take aging.
Okay.
Lynn?
Where am I?
International and multicultural.
Where is he?
I'd like to continue on aquatics.
Okay.
For each of those?
Alan will be on aquatics. Anybody want to be on art?
Oh, sorry, which one is this?
So Alan volunteered for aquatics.
Okay.
Anybody want to be on the art center committee?
Let's ask Keith first.
Okay.
For whichever one he might.
Okay, do you have a preference?
I don't.
Okay.
Should we give you some options?
I will do art.
I'm not signing up for an option here.
Oh, okay.
I just,
Can I sign up for arts?
Sure. You want, is that okay?
No, I mean, Chris can do art.
Yeah, okay, cool. Arts. And I think we're just missing health and fitness, if my notes are correct.
Who's on golf?
Me.
Reg.
I am. Reg. One each.
So I think
I can do health and fitness.
Want to do health? Okay, it's all yours.
And that was?
Andy. Andy volunteered for health and fitness. So I think that takes care of the committees.
I think so.
Next is IAT. We get volunteers for IAT.
I'll continue on IAT.
Can I get any other volunteers for IAT?
We need at least one.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is the difference between a member, an advisor, and a liaison?
The liaison are usually staff. So liaison is staff.
And the members are appointed by the board.
Yeah.
But
I don't see, I see it as the advisors are staff. The liaisons are the board members.
Yeah, I thought the liaisons with the board members, the advisor staff. But basically, each committee has staff advisors, board liaisons, and then the actual committee members.
My understanding is that if you are on an advisory committee, you are there as a liaison. You do not have a voting role on that particular committee. That is for the volunteers to work through.
Yeah.
If you're on a committee like risk management or board operations, you are a member because you are expected to vote on issues. That's the discerning difference, because we have two different types of committees.
Agreed.
Okay. Anyway, I think we still need another volunteer for IAT. So we got Keith to continue. Are there any other volunteers for to be a director on the Inner Arbor Trust?
Who was the first one?
Keith volunteered to continue. Any other volunteers to? Okay. Cool. Okay. Do we need a motion on this or?
Yeah, you do need a motion.
Because they're elected.
Okay, do you want to move it?
Janet in the back's trying to get your attention.
Yeah.
This is a resolution, so it will need a vote.
Okay.
We do have ballots, but if there are only 2 nominations,
Yeah, there's only 2 nominations.
then
So,
I move we appoint Keith and Sky as our Inner Arbor Trust reps.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I second it. Any objections? No objections. Motion passes.
I move we reappoint the officers of the Columbia Association.
Second.
So that's President, Vice President, Secretary, Treasurer.
Any objections?
I just have a question. It says in the resolution, it says interim president. I don't think we have interim president as one of our officers in our bylaws or charter. So I'm not clear that that's an office that we can vote for as an officer of the corporation.
We had one.
It should say president.
Yeah, it should just say president?
Yes.
Okay. We'll take that as a,
President.
yeah, we'll take that as a typographical.
Corporate.
Yeah, yeah. Corporate office.
Yeah, important to understand the corporate officers.
Okay, so we'll delete the word interim. So we got a motion by Andy, a second by myself to move the resolution of the corporate officers. Any objections?
Who's running the meeting?
Yeah, who's running the meeting? Who's the chair right now? I thought it was Andy.
I'm Andy, but
Andy, you need to run the meeting.
That's okay.
it's we're a team. We're co-chairing right now. Any objections? No objections. Motion passes.
No, I suggest we go back. We have to appoint the members of the ARC, the Columbia Association.
Oh, sorry.
Architectural Resource Committee.
Whoops, I missed that one. Sorry.
Carolyn Payton, Deb Bach, Katrina Kaya, mispronouncing the name, Aline McNair, and Carol McPhee.
Actually, I'm missing from my packet.
So that's our committee that handles appeals from the village. And I can tell you they're all knowledgeable of covenants. So is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
Just a quick note, typically, general counsel would be present at those meetings. Do we have an accommodation for what we're doing on that?
Carolyn.
Okay. Oh, there you go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's, for those who don't know, she's the assistant general.
Yes. Got it.
Yeah, so we have that covered.
Wanted to make sure.
She's actually interim.
Got it.
If there's no objection, motion passes.
Okay. I think next we have the schedule.
Are there any objections to our schedules? This is kind of for your information. This is.
Do we need to move this? Do we need to move it?
We can if you want. I mean,
I think this is from.
All right. Is there a motion then to adopt?
Motion to approve the schedule and dates.
Second.
Okay. So moved.
Reg seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I will raise my annual question that wondering if we shoot ourselves in the foot every year by saying how much work we have to do and yet we take August off. Our villages don't take August off and they have less work to do. At least our village doesn't take August off. I get the concerns that it's more work for staff, but not only do we take August off, but we take half of November off and half of December off in terms of meetings. And so I'm just wondering, I just want us to make an informed decision that we are okay removing 4 possible meetings in a year, particularly the 2 in August.
I think August is the traditional vacation.
Yeah, August is traditional vacation month, and
but
board and staff.
one of our questions is what can we do differently to be more effective, to be more inclusive, and just counting on what we've done in the past is a pretty sure way to continue to get what we've always gotten.
So, question. So since it is a month that we're taking off, if we needed it for some reason, say something, we needed that month, we could still use that month. It's still open to us.
You could still call a meeting if absolutely needed, but it's not something you want to do.
Well, no, I understand that. I'm just saying to alleviate Alan's point, he's saying, hey, we should still be working. I'm saying that we could still hold it as a vacation month, but if we know that if we need it, if because of the workload, we decide, let's go ahead and meet, we still have that option.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, we have done that in the past. We've actually met in August. But these are the regularly scheduled meetings, so we can post so everybody, all our residents can kind of know that these are the meetings. But we can schedule other meetings as needed.
Okay. I'll call the question.
Sure.
I'll call the question.
Can I just ask why we're voting on this?
Historical precedent.
Yes.
That's about the only reason.
Okay.
But we can look into seeing if this is a way we can do a little bit more.
Yeah, I just want to, I think from the get-go, we need to start asking ourselves, instead of debating about things, whether we need to do this or if it's something we just need to move forward. It's recommended by staff and,
I mean, I can tell you we have had this schedule for years.
Yeah, this is pretty consistent.
I'm not trying to waste time. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I would just point out, it doesn't affect this year, but in terms of precedent, as we look ahead to next year, with the weird way that Thursdays show up in May, April and May, I think we should, or May and June, we should make sure that we don't exactly follow the schedule for May.
Okay.
Is there any objection to the schedule? Hearing none.
Okay. Next, we have the discussion on the RFP on the agenda.
So what you have before you is the RFP we used 2 years ago with modifications to bring it up to date with our current code. This is an opportunity for any of the board members to raise any questions or discuss anything, and then we'll take the official vote at our next meeting to issue the RFP. Is that correct, Dennis?
I believe that's the case.
So the only question is, we went through, I'll say, a pretty long process to talk about and establish committees to handle the CEO search for the next board. So is this one of those committees that needs to consider this and to begin handling that business, or at what point do we start transitioning into those committees that we've established?
So I believe the committees will be established in the September timeframe.
Yes.
So for the time being, we'll be doing this as a whole board to just get the RFP started and get that ball rolling.
Did you say September?
September.
So if I could.
Yeah.
It's a fairly big lift for staff to have a third meeting. And so it would take us some time to set up to be able to do that. That's the reason why it's September. And in the early stages of this, it's approving the RFP is not really where I think we need the committee to be party to it.
And again, just trying to understand the committee structure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the RFP, I mean, has to be basically approved by the board, just like
everything.
When a firm is selected, in the end, it has to come to the board for approval. And the selection of the final candidates will have to come. Bill?
Well, just a quick note, what I think is important is we need to start this process so that we can get this selection done in a timely manner. So I think it's important to at least review the materials now and move along.
Yeah. Anyway, there's no vote on this. It's just discussion.
That's why I was talking about reviewing. Yeah.
Did anybody have any, I mean, we have suggested changes, which are basically date changes to get it started to meet our schedule. Any comments from anyone? If not, what I suggest is we put this on the consent agenda, since it seems to be okay. So we'll put the RFP with the recommended changes on the consent agenda, and then it'll just get approved.
Can you explain what that means?
So we needed to modify the RFP to.
I meant the consent agenda.
The consent agenda means that as soon as we approve the agenda at the meeting, it's automatically approved. We don't have to take an official vote.
Okay.
It's one
But
way.
it also means that between now and then, anybody reviews this and lets the chair know, hey, I think I'd like some further discussion, it gets taken off the consent agenda.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. We use the consent agenda to sometimes speed up things if we know we've all in agreement on a particular issue, instead of having to put it on the agenda for further discussion and then a call to vote. If we put it on the consent agenda, then it just automatically gets approved. And you're going to notice that we do that a lot with the minutes. We put the minutes on the consent agenda. So, if you have any objections, just let us know. If not, the minutes just get approved.
Appointments to village committees that we have say over also, usually on the consent agenda.
All right, anything else? If not, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting and move into the Columbia Council meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objection? If not, motion's approved. Wow, Columbia Council meeting.
So I will announce that we've gotten through 2 of the 3 meetings. We've got 1 more meeting to go. Good evening. I'm Eric Greenberg, Chair of the FY23 Columbia Council. Following past practice, I will act as chair at the beginning of this organizational meeting of the FY24 Columbia Council. There will be a vote in a few minutes to approve the appointment of chair and vice chair of the FY24 Columbia Council. The individual selected as chair will then preside over the remainder of this organizational meeting. Please remember that this meeting is being live streamed. You can find the agendas and background materials for this meeting on the CA Board of Directors website. Links to these documents can also be found in the description section of YouTube live stream for those watching the meeting there. If you're virtual, please mute your microphones and phones unless speaking. If you're in the room, please ensure that your cell phones are silenced. Raise your hand to speak and the chair will record the names in the order which they are seen. If you're virtual, please use the chat feature. As we move through the meeting, each item of the agenda will be introduced before a vote is taken. The motion, as well as who made and seconded the motion, will be stated. If at any point you have trouble hearing anyone, please say so. Tonight's timekeeper is Andy Stack. I'll now call the roll. Sky.
Here.
Reg.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Karen.
Here.
Chris.
Here.
Alan.
Here.
Keith.
Here.
Bill.
Here.
Andy.
Here.
And I am here. Also present is Dennis Matty, President CEO of the Columbia Association. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Reg moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Chris. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objections, the agenda is so moved. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 2022 meeting?
So moved.
Alan, is there a second? Seconds. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing no objections, the minutes are approved.
You can't approve or approve a minute unless you were physically there for that meeting, correct?
Well, it's
for the minutes.
It's basically by consent. So as long as there's no objection, it's fine.
All right.
Where's the resolution?
Does be resolved that the chair and vice chair of the Columbia Council shall be the same persons as the chair and vice chair of the Columbia Association's Board of Directors, elected to those positions on May 11th.
I'll move the resolution. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Keith. Any objections to the resolution?
Yes. I have an amendment that the resolution be amended so that it says that the chair of the Columbia Association Board of Directors will be the vice chair of the Columbia Council, and the vice chair of the Columbia Association Board of Directors will be the chair of the Columbia Council.
No. How does that work?
I mean, yeah, we could do it.
I don't understand. I don't understand the motion.
The motion is when one is chair of the Columbia Association Board of Directors, during that period of time, that person is vice chair of the Columbia Council. And yeah, that's what the amendment says, rather than being chair of both or vice chair of both.
Could we just make it co-chairs?
No, because you don't know in the future.
Yeah.
Well, this motion is just for this year. It's not.
I mean, it's literally just for this meeting.
Not binding for any other.
It's just for this meeting.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion because it's basically what we're doing at this point.
Okay.
Is there any objections to the resolution as amended?
Yes.
What?
I think that's crazy. So. Crazy is not a good word. My apologies. I don't think that it's appropriate. I think it should be as read in the resolution that the chair of the board should be the chair of the council. That's my objection.
Okay.
I agree with him.
Okay. I want to ask Alan to. Alan, you want to
vote?
We can just vote.
Okay. Let's. Any further discussion on this?
Are we voting on the amendment?
We're voting on the amendment presented by Alan to have the Columbia Council chair be whoever's the vice chair and vice versa. Sky.
No.
Reg.
No.
Lynn.
No.
Karen.
No.
Chris.
No.
Alan.
Yes.
Keith.
No.
Bill.
No.
Andy.
No.
I vote no. The motion fails 1-9. Can I call the question of the resolution as written?
So moved.
Are there any objections to the resolution as written? Seeing no objections, the resolution passes. You want to move to adjourn?
Yep, we just get to adjourn.
Yeah.
Is there an objection to adjourning? If not, I want to thank all of you.
Well, you need a motion.
We will, not really, you don't have to unless there's an objection to adjourning. Is there any objection to adjourning? No. Then we are adjourned.
We're adjourned.